Hello. Good seeing you. Ratman, hello.
Good to see you.
You're here for the next few months. You're welcome. Good, good. Season ticket. Awesome. Shake them out of hand. I'm just getting I hear it. Most days a little more. This decision was made above my
But again, tourists come in during the day. I don't know. And I'm not pretty sure that it's not that difficult. It's just yeah, you just have to pull our Facebook stuff.
How you going? Right now, we ready?
Anytime.
Hey, Peter, glad you guys ready?
I guess.
Ready?
I'm ready to listen. Nina's got the hard part. You're his backup. If he doesn't show, you're the backup. You got it. There he is. Even better. Steven, you ready?
Ready to rock?
Okay, yes,
All right, let's rock and roll. You ready, Gay?
Rodney was getting nervous when she didn't see you. I told her that she had you back. She was your backup. If you didn't show, she was going to get it.
You was nervous right now? No. We're about to win. Victory.
I was.
I didn't have a choice either.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ms. Huerta, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Council members Roland Barrera.
Here.
Sylvia Campos. Gil Hernandez. Michael Hunter. Jim Klein. Mike Pesley. Everett Roy. Dan Suckley. City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Present.
City Attorney Miles Risley. Mayor and Council, a quorum of the Council and the required charter officers are present to conduct the meeting.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. So this afternoon, we're here to have our workshop on the proposed Bond 2024 program. So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Zanoni.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Good to see you all on this special meeting. This is a workshop on our Bond 2024, and Neiman Young, our Assistant City Manager, is going to present the presentation this afternoon. This is a workshop with the council, so we want some back and forth. You know, it's not just a sole presentation. The goal today is to walk out of here with some consensus agreement on what would be the recommended candidate project list for the bond program so that we can go out to the community and stakeholders to show them that list that council's sponsoring or recommending. And then we'll get feedback from the community and stakeholders in the form of town hall meetings, one-on-one stakeholder engagement sessions, and then we'll bring back to the council in June what the community said and how it compares to this list that we'll conclude with today. So today's work session is a continuation of the work that this city council has done. I did want to point out for the record, you all have had numerous meetings and conversations on this bond program, so there's a lot of work that has gone into where we are today from the council, which is important for the community to know. This is not the first presentation on this proposed bond program. The work actually began in mid-February with the city council. And so numerous meetings, many stakeholders in our audience today, some of our lead executives in our public safety areas, in our streets and parks. Our financial advisor, Victor, is here as well. So I think we're prepared today to continue this conversation. And with that, we're going to have Neiman come on up. You do have the material in front of you that was delivered over the weekend and then again this yesterday. And Neiman will use that presentation. And again, just a reminder, there may not be 100% agreement on a final candidate project list, but we're seeking some type of consensus agreement from the city council so that we can go out to the community. Already 5 community meetings have been scheduled, 1 in each of the city council districts. And Neiman has numerous stakeholder engagement sessions scheduled, and he'll continue to schedule others. So to continue the work, this step is an important aspect of that overall plan. So with that, I'll turn it over to Neiman.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. Again, my name is Neiman Young, Assistant City Manager with the City of Corpus Christi, and today we are indeed here to discuss Bond 24. If we could bring up the presentation. And the city manager is absolutely correct. This is a very important topic, so much so that the last time that we had a discussion on the topic, which was April 23rd, City Council and the mayor did direct the city manager and staff to put together a bond workshop, which is the reason why we're here today. As City Council is fully aware, in between that discussion and today, there's been multiple engagements with our council members. And I can say that based off of those engagements that's been had with our policymakers, the proposal that's being presented to you all today looks totally different than what was presented to you on April 23rd. And the takeaway from that is that this new proposal is a direct reflection of the guidance and the feedback that we have received from City Council. With that being stated, here is our topics for the discussion. So regarding our one-on-one meetings with City Council and the Mayor, there was recurring themes that came up from our policymakers. Specifically, one of the most pressing thoughts was, what exactly is it that the city staff, City Council, or we as a team are trying to achieve? And city staff and myself actually, sat down and really pondered that question that was asked by some of our policymakers. And one thing that we did realize is that because of our bond programs and the investments that's been afforded us, we've had over 10 years of demonstrated success of making improvements to our infrastructure for our community. This includes streets, public facilities, public safety, libraries, and our community centers. And just to demonstrate the success that we have had with previous bond programs, if Madam Mayor and Council, if you will, I would like to just give you a few examples of some of that great success that's been made because of bond funding. This includes improvements to Navigation Boulevard, the improvements and the extension of Rodfield Road, improvements to Swatner Drive, Ayer Street, Staples, Laguna Shores, and Everhart. I think that it's very important to note to not only council but to the viewing public that our demonstrated success with previous bond programs and the investment community hasn't been left to street infrastructure alone. So to capture all the work that's been in progress that's been made at your guidance, we decided that was going to place a map before you, basically depicting and giving you a summarized overview of all the investments that's been made in the community as a result of the city's bond programs. That includes streets, the police training academy, new aquatic center, and other entities that's taking place across the community. Now, at our April 23rd meeting, there were concerns that was expressed to the city staff regarding the proposed budget for Bond 2024, which is $175 million. And we definitely understand that that may make some people take pause, especially those in the community. But I think that it's very important that we provide a little bit of context to that $175 million cost. $175 million was proposed to Bond 2024, but in reality, it was $125 million that was approved in Bond 2022. Now, where does that $50 million gap lie between Bond 2022 and Bond 2024? After quick analysis that was performed by the city staff, we realized that we're asking for more in Bond 2024 simply based off of the fact that there's going to be a portfolio of new facilities that we're looking to pursue in Bond 24, and it's necessary facilities. We're talking about new police substations, new fire stations, as stated before. District 5, which is the high growth area for the city, is lacking a community center and our own independent library. So all those needs to ensure that our public safety officials have the facilities that they need to operate, and our community has their own independent facilities for quality of life in the high growth areas, is what's leading to this additional $50 million or $175 million request. With that being stated, again, I'd like to provide to you all the 12 guiding principles that was approved by City Council on February 13th. And as a reminder, our guiding principles basically ensures that city staff and our policymakers aren't developing a plan in a vacuum. Basically, what we're trying to do is ensure that we have left and right limits for the proposal that we're going to bring before City Council and eventually the general public. These guiding principles include ensuring that we're prioritizing signature projects that promote increased capacity, functionality, and economic development across not one single district, but across the entire community. And most importantly, the biggest walkaway is ensuring that there's an equitable allocation of that funding across the entire community rather than just a bulk of funding going to one council district. So again, we have our principles for streets, parks, public safety, and most importantly, in general. So with that being said, and providing you all that background, if there are any questions, this would be the time that we do move into our individual proposed candidate projects for Bond 24. But before we do, we felt that it would be prudent for us to take pause and remind council that Bond 24 will actually be the first platform where we're looking to make stormwater improvements via bond funding rather than depending on the stormwater fee alone. And because that policy is being pursued in Bond 24, it does have a significant impact on the stormwater fee itself. To elaborate a little bit more on how the stormwater fee is impacted, I'm going to invite Gabriel Hinojosa, our Assistant Director of Public Works, Stormwater, to come up and walk you all through how the stormwater fee is impacted now that those improvements would be paid for in the bond versus the fee itself.
Thank you, Neiman. Council, Mayor, Gabriel Hinojosa, Assistant Director of Public Works. So like Neiman was saying, this is a briefing on how stormwater bond projects affect the stormwater rate based on debt service. So in a typical year in stormwater, you'll see our average stormwater street support and bond programs is around $30 million a year. So this is going to your big streets, your Everharts, your Staples, your Laguna Shores, like the pictures that were depicted in the beginning of the presentation. And then you're going to have your stormwater only core projects within that CIP plan also. So this is our IDIQ, our Bay Water Quality, our Life Cycle Curb and Gutter, those kind of core projects that are specifically geared towards stormwater. So you're looking at about $40 million per year in revenue bonds with those two types of projects combined. So how does that relate to debt service once we get that $40 million? So on average, selling a $40 million bond, you're looking at a debt service at about $2.6 million per year, and that's with current rates that we're seeing with this upcoming bond sale here in May and June in the summer. So that 2.6, kind of using that ratio of the 30 million and the 10 million. So stormwater is supported by bond projects by about 75%, and then stormwater only is 25% of that 40 million. So if you take that ratio, you're looking at about $2 million worth of debt service payment for those big bond projects, and then about $600,000 of that debt service payment going towards only stormwater only projects. So of course that debt service ratio based on that is 75%, 25%. And you'll see on the next slide the rate scenarios that we have using our original stormwater fee method, which includes both the CIP projects and the stormwater only projects, and then the alternative of now not getting rid of, but of removing the stormwater bond support projects from the rate. So this separation would occur in FY26 because currently FY25 is locked in because we're about to sell bonds here in the summer. So that debt service will be picked up by stormwater fee here in FY25. So that FY25, you're looking at full support of both of those types of projects. Then FY26 is where we can now, if we sell bonds next year, we can split out those two types. So what you're seeing here is the revenue needed in order to fulfill our maintenance and operations and of course our debt service for the stormwater program. So you'll see from 25 to 26, if we do sell bonds again next year, you'll see an increase from 35.5 million for operating to 40 million if you use that original option. If you remove those stormwater fee or those stormwater bond projects, which on the previous side was about $2 million, you're looking at about $2 million less in revenue needed to capture those expenditures. So you'll see that going across for FY26, 27, and 28. You're always going to see that $2.5 million difference. And then, of course, it gets a little compounded once you get to FY28. So you can keep in your mind that, you know, every year we're selling bonds. It's about 3/4 going towards CIP funding, towards bond projects funding, and then 1/4 going towards stormwater only projects. So you'll see how that affects the rate. So tier 2 is where our majority of our users are at, and that's kind of our base rate, the way we look at it. So you'll see FY26 at $12.93. Then you'll see FY27 jump up to $13.42 based on our original method, and then $13.90 going to FY28. So you'll see only the revenue needed if we separate it out is $38 million for both FY 26 and 27. So to see those rates, those 1228, they stay the same for the next 2 years because we can capture those revenues with only $38 million coming in. So then, of course, FY 28, we need another $500,000 to capture those revenues. So you jump up to 1245 based on that new method. And these are all preliminary costs that we're looking at based on, kind of rates today. So if you have any questions, I can go ahead and answer them at this time.
Yeah, Gabe.
Thank you, Gabe.
Can I just clarify, just to make it a little more simple? So in the past, the stormwater sections of the road work was paid for initially by the water fund. But when we transitioned to a stormwater fund and fee, then we started paying it out of that fund. Councilman Hernandez suggested, amongst other council members, let's have the bonds pay for the stormwater infrastructure, relieving some of the rate increase on the operating account. And if you go back to that slide, please, you can see it's about a 50-cent savings based on last year's assumptions. So instead of the rate being $12.93, it would be, I guess it's about a 60-70-cent saving. It would be $12.28 per month. So there is rate reduction or savings in the monthly fee by placing the debt service in the bonds as opposed to the operating account, this fund, and in the past it was in the water rate. So basically that's the policy recommendation. We do have it as a recommendation because it relieves pressure on the monthly fee, and then it also allows us to use this fee to do maintenance and operations, which the main intent is that, not to pay for all this infrastructure. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you, Peter. Councilman Suckley?
Hey, Gabe. With respect to that top section where it says revenue needed, is that revenue needed to provide one-to-one coverage with the debt service? Is that what's basically puts it at a break even covering the debt service?
Correct, sir, with the original method or the alternate method. So that's maintenance and operations, so that's all our day-to-day plus a debt service. So the total stormwater program, say for FY26, is what you'll see is our proposed FY25 budget will be $35.5 million because it incorporates all our maintenance operations plus that debt service. So we'll break even with our expenditures and revenue. So we'll set a rate which is that 1148 or those 3-tier rates, and that'll capture that 35.5 needed for our expenditures.
Okay. I was just trying to follow the presentation because the page before we were talking about debt service and then it talked about revenue needed. So I assumed it was dollar for dollar covering what the proposed debt service would be as the bonds were issued.
Correct. And
Okay.
We're looking at, preliminary, maybe a $5.5 million debt service payment for next year.
Okay.
But
All right.
Councilman, this slide that was up here, this is the total operating and capital improvements budget, if you will. So it does transition. He was talking all about debt service. This the revenue requirements are to operate the stormwater program and pay for that debt service that we have as well. So that taking 2026, we anticipate about 40 million or 38 million in revenue needs to pay for the crews that do the street sweeping, the ditch clearing, the preventative maintenance, as well as pay for the debt service that we have with prior bonds outstanding. Yes, sir.
Councilman Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I'm trying to understand how you came to these numbers from, in your presentation, going from 2024 to 2025, you have an increase of 30%, roughly about 30% in your costs. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
And if it's 2.6% is debt service, including streets as well as your, I guess, internal projects with stormwater, that's only about a 9.5% increase in cost if you're just looking at debt service. So the nexus, you have a 20% increase in your overall costs separate from debt service?
So if you look at FY25 at 35.5, as I mentioned, we're probably going to have about $5.5 million in a debt service payment all due next year.
Oh, okay, but is that,
So we're putting it at about 30 million now at maintenance and operations. We also have, I believe, 2 budget initiatives that are within that 35.5. So it's the additional street sweepers, continuing that program to convert everything to in-house, and also an MLL construction crew. So I think that's coming out at close to 3 million. So you're looking at 8.5. So that's where that you're seeing that difference is the big debt service payment plus 2 budget initiatives is what's moving us from the 27.5 to the 35.5.
okay, but that debt service is over a few years, right? It's not just last year's debt service.
Yeah, it's what we've sold since 2022, since the inception. So it's whatever we sold in 22, 23, and now what we're selling here in 24.
Okay, so you're looking at it as from the total amount of debt service you're going to be doing. So
Correct.
if you have 35 million and your debt is 5 million, 5 what?
5.5.
5.5. So
It's a 5.65 is what I'm looking at currently.
so it's about almost 16% of your total budget is debt service.
Well, actually, next year it's going to be 6.4. We're paying 5.5 this year. FY25 is going to be almost 6.5.
Okay. So this is one of the reasons why I recommended it going into our general obligation bond, because as you can see, it's continually increasing the cost. Now, I know this is not part of that, but if we move over that $9 million from type A into stormwater, maybe we won't have to increase the rates as much as we are. So it kind of all comes together. Considering how important stormwater is to our city,
Right.
It's best to try and attack it in different ways instead of just putting it on the utility bill.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Pusley?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I want to make sure I understand this correctly. You're going to take your normal maintenance and operation kind of costs, and you're going to let the bond pay for that. So, and to reduce the cost that we're going to charge to our individual customers, right?
The construction.
No, sir. Just
Yeah,
your.
the construction, so the construction of the.
Okay, well,
yeah.
construction, whatever.
Yeah, because the
Okay.
maintenance operations is staying.
So it's like giving a pay raise with money you get one time. So what are you going to do in 2029 when the bond money is gone? So what happens that year?
You would continue we would continue to operate daily with the stormwater fee. Any debt associated to big bond projects, such as the ones that were mentioned, would be continued to be sold under the GO bonds with the streets. So we would still incur debt with our just core stormwater projects, which are IDIQ projects, like we did the one at Glen Oak. That was one of the about $3.5 million project we did in Flower Bluff. We're looking at some bridge improvements throughout the city. So the stormwater fee would still cover debt service going forward into the future for those kind of core projects, but anything associated with major bond streets would be now under GO bonds.
So this downward trend in what we're charging for residential rates, depending on what tier you're in, is going to continue?
I think so, because if we continue to incur just stormwater only debt, of course, our debt service will increase to a certain point till debt starts to fall off.
So we need to go back and reduce those rates that we're now charging?
No, sir. Because we still have operating costs. So next year, so FY25, our base operating cost is about $26 million.
Okay.
So you'll see the rates there, but that's all based for 35. So our base expenditures, Mr. Zanoni mentioned, our ditch cleaning, our street sweeping, our vegetation maintenance is going to be at about 26 million. Then I mentioned those 2 budget improvements, which is continuing the street sweeping in-house program, and then the maintenance alliance crew. That's about 2.3 million that will be adding to that base $26 million operating. So you're about 28.3, 28.4 million there. That's just based to operate stormwater day to day. And then you have your big payment of 6.4 million in debt service. To to continue, I would kind of, yes, the rates might continue, but not at a great pace as they are right now. Just if you separate out those two debt services.
Okay. Well, so, Gabe, let's try to simplify this so everybody understands. In year 2025, next year,
yes, sir.
These rates that you show under the 2025 column with the $35.5 million in original debt is going to require the fees that you show below, correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay. Was that the original fees that we projected here back when we set these?
Yes, I believe in FY25 last year, I believe we showed close to 35 million. So yes.
And so starting in year 2026, if this bond 2024 passes, then those fees will reduce by the amounts you've shown here.
Well, you would reduce it if we chose to separate out the two.
Well, let me rephrase that.
yes.
You won't have to
The answer
increase
is
the
yes.
fee to the 970 instead of
Right.
861. It'll just go to 921,
Right.
Correct.
correct?
So it'll go,
Okay, so
instead
you-
of from
So that fee
861.
won't be implemented, you'll just go to the lesser of the two fees,
Correct, sir.
okay?
921.
And that continues on out.
Yes, sir.
Right. And as Councilman Hernandez says, as we work on the Type A renewal, stormwater is a viable candidate, not storm, but flood control. So if we can pay for some of the flood
But
control.
that's only if we decide, Peter, and I haven't decided
I know,
yet
I'm
whether
just
I'm going to
saying.
support that,
Yeah,
if we're going to spread that money all across the city of Corpus Christi.
right. I'm just saying, under the current conversation, if the flood control projects are included in that sales tax, even less of a rate increase would be needed, because we would pay for it with those funds.
Okay.
Not to say that's a done, nobody's confirmed anything, but just under
Well-
that scenario.
Right.
And so if the bond 2024 doesn't pass, then those same rates will continue.
Right.
That were projected.
No, because no.
Yeah?
No, because
If the bond doesn't.
if the bond doesn't pass, we don't do the work. There's no
Okay.
infrastructure work, so it would go down to that lower rate.
Still?
Yeah, because we wouldn't be, it's just, there would be, right, we wouldn't need the construction work. This shows it not being paid here, so it wouldn't be paid for in this new scenario under the property tax debt.
Okay. All right.
Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. These rates that we're being introduced to are, well, I mean, we have discussed them before. Now that our stormwater is separate, like I think most cities are, what is the comparison? Are we more, because I've had complaints, from the community saying that we have some of the highest rates for our city, water rates, stormwater, what have you. How are we in comparison now to other cities? Because we're always comparing. So can you answer that, Gabe?
Yes, ma'am. So I'd have to look at the comparison, but I'll tell you, not all stormwater programs are apples to apples. Other cities, have more of a program towards flash flooding because of the elevation they have, the changes of elevation. So their stormwater programs may be tailored towards their needs. This stormwater program is tailored towards Corpus's needs, which are our major channel maintenance, our vegetation maintenance, street sweeping, things like that. So to make a fair comparison between cities would be kind of hard, just because the different operations that they have versus what we have and what we need.
And wouldn't you say that the storm sweepers is part of that? Because since we are so far behind in our curb and gutter issues, now that we have transferred to now pavement only, this will hopefully alleviate some of that, the concentration of like debris that gets stuck, from whenever we do get rain. With that, hopefully, is that part of the reason why we do the street sweeper? Can you explain to the audience, to the public, why we need storm sweepers?
So street sweeping, I think, has multiple effects. Of course, you have the visual effect of a clean street in your neighborhoods, in your collectors, your arterials, but the other thing is also the environmental impact. Trash, sediment, silt, going into our drains, which eventually drain into Oso Creek, the Nueces River, Corpus Christi Bay. So there's multiple effects to street sweeping. Not only does it look nice, but it also has an impact on the environment. I don't know how many hundreds of tons we pick up a month with our current just in-house street sweepers. That's not even our contractual. But yes, our street sweepers are a very important part of our program and to our city, on multiple levels.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Barrera.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is going to be the component for the bond package for the streets.
Correct, sir. So, your big streets, so your Everhart, your Staples, they're kind of our trunk system.
Yeah.
So they're large boxes, they're high dollar infrastructure that get put in usually in our arterials, because those usually take it out to, like I say, either Corpus Christi Bay, Oso Creek.
So what component of the 92 million that you have proposed is going to stormwater? Is that the way? Am I?
No. So
there is
apart from that 90 million, we add an additional 30 million to that. So stormwater.
Yeah, that's correct. And sorry, it's about a third, about 30 million will be actually stormwater improvements, and then 62 million will be surface improvements.
Okay, so
it's in the 92 today.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, the 92 includes 30 million of.
So that's what I was gonna get to. So roughly 30 million is going to come from. Is for stormwater.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So then, do GOs I guess is it going to be at a more competitive rate than a revenue bond?
Yes. The answer is yes.
A lot of yeses.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah, good point. So it saves taxpayer monies because we pay a lower interest rate on GO bonds as opposed to revenue bonds.
Yep. And if we haven't calculated, that's fine. But do we have any idea what kind of impact that is?
I don't think we have that today. Do we have it today, you guys? No, but we can get that. That's a good.
Yeah. Because that's a good selling tool.
Yeah.
That not only are we're going to be able to reduce your rates because number one, we're putting it into that component, and then we're going to get you better rates. So it's more fiscally prudent.
Yes.
Okay, that's the other thing I wanted to get to. So, and then I guess the revenue bonds that we're purchasing to be able to finance the other components, because it's 26 million to run, it's $26 million to operate the stormwater.
Correct, for next year for FY25 without the budget initiatives.
So how much debt service do we have? How much debt do we have now for the CIP for stormwater?
As far as the debt service payment or the total that we've borrowed?
The total that we borrowed.
To guess, I would say about 100 million, somewhere around there.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, I think we've sold bonds for 3 years, or it'll be 3 years now.
Okay, and so, but we're not going to sell these bonds till 2026. That's why we're showing that it'd be an impact. I mean, why wouldn't we do it any sooner?
Because the bonds we're selling this summer, the first payment will be due in fiscal year 25.
Got you.
So if we sell something next summer, that payment will be due in 26, and that's where we can separate out those two amounts in FY26.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Klein.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Gabriel, for the presentation. I had a question that's kind of coming from out of left field. I just wanted to check on this. The Stormwater Department has implemented, I guess I'm going to call them trash capture mechanisms. I'm not sure what they're called exactly. I think there's 3 of them at city parks near the
Bay
shore.
water quality, yes, sir.
That's grant funded. Is that correct? Am I wrong about that?
No, sir. That's stormwater.
So that's going to be funded through this bond then as well?
Yes, sir. So that's the core projects. What I'm taking into that 10 million is the Bay water quality, those types of projects.
Okay, good. Thank you. I just want to be sure that there was kind of a long-term plan for continuing that project.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Pusley.
So of the 92 million you have under bond 2024 for streets, 30 million of that is going to be for stormwater?
Yes, sir. Yes, that's
Yes, Councilman.
That's correct, yes, sir.
That's correct. So why aren't we breaking that out? Because we've been telling people that 92 million is going to be for streets, and that's not correct. I mean, streets are streets, stormwater, stormwater.
We definitely could, sir. I think that is really transparent to our citizens, but we definitely could advertise that as $62 million for streets and $30 million for stormwater improvements.
I think we should.
Yeah, we
Yes, sir.
can do that, Councilman.
We can.
And then we'll also add to that the 30 million in water and gas
Yes.
line infrastructure.
Yeah.
So it's really 120 million when you're all in for the pavement, the water, gas, and stormwater and wastewater. So there's a lot of utilities below that.
Yeah, because, you go out and tell people we're going to spend 92 million on streets. That's not really what we're doing.
It's actually I think it's another 60 on top of that, isn't it? Because you get the water, wastewater.
We actually, yes, we're doing one for one on utilities.
Yeah, so Jeff's shaking his head, the lead engineer, so 60 million on top of the 90 to do the entire street and the subsurface utilities. So it's 150 million.
I understand.
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
but we'll break that out. That's a great advice.
I agree. And I think that serves as really an educational piece, because people don't really realize, that
Right.
stormwater costs
Yeah.
a great deal. And, of course, delineate the amenities, if you will, that we're going to, that are included, which is the street sweeping and all of that.
Right.
Good point, Councilman Pusley.
Thank you.
Yeah, good point, Councilman Pusley.
Councilman Roy.
I think everybody's kind of said what I was going to say in terms of breaking out. I agree, because I was thinking in terms of, I think District 1, we're having we're the first community meeting on this coming up here pretty quick. And I think for the average person, if we can show this and enhance your illustration to break it down and show that, I think it would go a long way. Because not only does it give them a benchmark to compare with the past, but I just think it's easier to understand.
Yes, sir. Tracking, definitely, sir. We'll figure out how to graphically depict that.
Plus, it gives us the ability to capture really more realistic what's happening. And I think it's going to limit the number of questions that you'll get in the future, too.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, and Councilman, just, you're right, District 1's the first town hall meeting, and it's on May 6th, and Neiman will go over the entire lineup in a little bit, but since you brought it up, Monday, May 6th will be the first one in City Council District 1 at 6 o'clock.
Okay. Councilman Roy, you done? You're done. Okay. I think that's all the questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If we could pull the presentation back up. So with all that background being provided in the discussion regarding the stormwater fee, staff would now like to move forward and discuss the individual candidate proposed projects for with our policymakers. We'll present these projects first as citywide projects, then we'll go each project by district, by council district. And again, as a reminder, the categories for bond proposal 2024 is streets, parks, public safety, and facilities. So focusing on streets, our first proposed project is Lower Broadway. As everybody's aware, it's a roadway that contains extreme sloping, historical retaining wall, and it's surrounded by historical facilities that's for the city. That road is currently failing. As City Council is fully aware, the original proposal included a request for $30 million to address Lower, Middle, and Upper Broadway. But since having our discussions with our City Council members, we are reducing the scope of the project to make it more affordable, where this project will focus on stabilizing the roadway at Lower Broadway, repairing the retaining wall, and making the surface repairs to Lower Broadway, basically phasing the project. And just a couple of pictures demonstrating.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Council.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sure,
Yeah, I did. And I just want to ask, I guess I saw Ernie here. Is he here?
Yes, sir.
Oh, there he is. So have we looked at on Upper Broadway? Because I drive it every day. So what is it on doing a mill and overlay? Is that a possibility from that component? To do the RRP? I mean, if it knows a perfectly good answer, or no, it's not possible.
Yes, sir. We can do an overlay to hold the project out for the next phase. That's not a problem.
Yeah, because when I'm headed towards, or at least towards Agnes on the Upper Broadway, I mean, yeah, you get the idea.
Yes, sir. We do have an initiative coming, recommendation for those type of project scenarios where they're not on the rapid payment program, but they do need relief in the immediate. So this will address roads like this one.
Okay. I just wanted, while you were on it, I just wanted to, that way there's some reassurance.
Yes, sir.
But would that hold us back on later on? I mean, is it going to be, because you obviously proposed 30 million. And now, and I was one of the ones that obviously was a stickler about this project. So will we be able to do that? I mean, it's not going to put it off. Like example, I know we had talked about Rivercrest, and I know we'll go through all these in a minute, but you said, okay, it's going to be in the RPP or RRP in 2 years, but if we put it on the bond, then it'd probably be 2-3 years before we get to it. So I just want to make sure that we're not kicking that can down the road further.
Yes, sir. Understand. And yeah, Lower Broadway currently isn't on the RPP.
Upper.
I'm sorry, upper middle Broadway.
Lower. We're going to do lower, but if we did upper, and uppers, what is it? I mean, they're both kind of rough.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, but if there's a possibility to do that.
Yes, sir.
You've answered my question. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Can I just add one thing to that, though? All three, the lower, middle, and upper, are being recommended by the engineers to be done in concrete, not pavement, so it wouldn't really qualify for the rapid pavement program.
Okay, and that's okay.
Yeah, right. Just to point out this, the subgrade is so weak that concrete's being recommended to help slope stabilization of the retaining wall. Yes, sir.
Yeah, those are perfect.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes, sir. Okay.
It is.
Councilman Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. So is this length 1.65 miles or 1.65 lane miles?
Miles, sir.
So you're doing we're just doing Lower Broadway, but we went from 1.65. I'm trying to look at the previous statement.
Yes, sir.
So we went from 1.65 to 1.65, and we reduced the cost by $20 million?
Yes, is that correct? And but if you recall, sir, we was really focusing on
design.
Multi-tiers, but now we're focusing on a single-tier roadway.
And then to Councilman Pusley's point before, should this really be listed in street? I mean, $10 million, if we're going to be doing wall stabilization, slope stabilization, kind of seems like that's where most of the money, or at least most of our focus, should be on that project, especially considering all the property values that could be affected by that.
Yes, sir. And of course, we could have that discussion with council, and if there was another category you all would rather see that project contained in, of course. But the recommendation why from the staff keep it in the streets was simply based off of the fact that, yes, we're addressing slopes and we're addressing retainage walls, but all those improvements are being made in support and ensuring that that street and that corridor remains open to the traveling public.
And I don't think that you're trying to be, maybe be clear about this, I don't think that you're trying to be, but this can be seen as deceptive. And I think that we just need to really specifically list the details, especially when you have your workshop meetings. Be very open about what everything's going for and go into detail with this scope portion of this slide.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Pusley.
Yeah, so Peter just said something a while ago. He said that the Upper Broadway, the streets, Upper Broadway and Lower Broadway are going to be done are recommended to be done in concrete,
right,
to help with slope stabilization. I'm just curious as how that's going to help the slope.
Let's have Jeff answer that. Jeff, he's the city engineer. talk about the concrete versus asphalt.
I'm sorry, my geology kicked in, and I'm trying to figure out how that's going to...
Well, it wasn't so much to help, it was just concerned about having vibratory equipment on the asphalt. We could do concrete without that, and vibratory equipment would put additional loading on the retaining walls and slopes and things that are causing problems out there.
Okay.
And also with the slopes, it's a little bit easier to construct that in concrete.
Okay, so what is being talked about as far as helping with the slope stabilization?
Well, we're not far enough along on that. We're kind of in the preliminary engineering, but we were thinking about tiebacks, soil nailing, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, Councilman, currently the project is in design. It was a 2022 bond program project.
Right.
So the design, the analysis of the slope, the retaining wall, the slope failure, that's all being done right now.
Okay.
But as Jeff said, it's probably something like that. We know about bulkheading, and especially in this city.
Yeah.
And slope stabilizations.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, hopefully there's not really anything you're ever going to do to stop that hill from sloping. I mean, it's just Mother Nature will eventually win out at some point, but you can slow it down a little bit if you do the things correctly. So I'd be very interested as you get into that, Jeff. If you'll give me a ring, I'll swing by and look.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hernandez.
Yeah, on this, specifically calling this a citywide project, in 2022, when this was a design project, it was a District 1 project. So I mean, why the change in?
Councilman, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Okay, so the description of this particular project, the Upper Broadway,
right,
is a citywide project.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Same thing with North Beach. But in the last
bond
package under projects in District 1, Upper Middle Lower Broadway design was a District 1 project. So why the change?
Yes, sir. We made that change simply because we wanted to ensure that we could, since it was such a large project originally, it was $30 million, we didn't want to recommend that be allocated to District 1. Naturally, that would have a significant impact on the funding that could be allocated to District 1. So we was recommending that it be added as a citywide project, considering the fact that it is a lot of historical facilities that are in that area. And that's why we want to recommend that, that be taken into consideration and be offered as a citywide project versus District 1. But again, if City Council wanted to make that a District 1 specific project, that's something that the staff will take into consideration, and you all have that ability.
Okay, I understand why you did it, to kind of make it look like the scales are balanced, but it really doesn't change anything. I mean, no reason to call something a citywide project when it's, so far inside a single district. It just doesn't hold water. If it was a project that crossed districts, or like I would even say that the Oso golf course project, there's only 2 golf courses and everybody uses those golf courses. You could probably make an argument for that, but what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want to, don't piss on my shoe and tell me it's raining kind of thing. So
be careful, big boy.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Well, what I'm trying to say is that there's no reason to call it that. Just put it in District 1. I mean, I didn't think it was, when we did Yorktown, okay, it benefited District 4 a little bit on that one, so I didn't say anything, but it's just call it what it is.
Yes,
I mean, there's no point in trying to mask it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry, Councilman Barrera.
Well, not to contradict, but I'm forced to. As somebody whose office is on Upper Broadway, who is a resident of District 3 and has 3 people that live in District 3 in my office. 4, I take that back. and 2 people that live in District 5, we travel that on a regular basis. And part of the reason we're downtown is because of the iconic value. And I mean, that's a big component, you know. The cathedral, I mean, the downtown skyline. So, and I think that's part of the appeal of downtown. And then I even heard a friend of mine once from Houston say, "Oh, I remember Corpus. That's a place that really has an uptown and a downtown," and it was because it was because of the bluff. So I think it has some iconic value. So I don't think we're getting your shoes wet. Let's put that to the public. So yeah, I think there's some iconic value to it, and I think it's important. And I mean, I'm okay with the wording right now. I'm one of all the rest, but I think it's important because it's a project for all of us, especially somebody that I think I take a personal. Anyway, you get my point.
Yes, sir. Thanks, sir.
Councilman Roy.
So, you know, we started out, it was $30 million. We're down to 10 right now. And, okay, I know that this project supports the street. Without it, I think the erosion and the other things would be worse. So I'm not, in this particular case, given what we have here, and we'll get into this later, I don't have a problem if you want to call it District 1 or whatever the case is. But unlike, and I know we're going to talk about this later, but when you look at Sherrill Park, and I was talking to Councilmember Pusley about this, but when you look at Sherrill Park and some of the other things, it's definitely, I mean, I think we can defend stating that that is a citywide project. And so I don't have a problem right now deferring to the fact that if you want to call it District 1, call it District 1. But I think there's some other things that we were calling District 1 that I think should be really citywide, and I'll bring those up later.
Yes, sir.
Especially when you have something that, like Sherrill Park, for example, that's going to be used by veterans and people and tourists and the likes.
Yes, sir.
So I don't mind conceding on that. It's, again, you cut it down to 10 million. So.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay.
If we could bring up the presentation. After Lower Broadway, that then brings us to a proposed project for the North Beach drainage improvements. As City Council is aware, approximately a year and a half ago, City Council did approve what is known as the North Beach Drainage Project. It's a $14 million project that has been tailored towards addressing flooding and drainage issues on the North Beach Peninsula. In addition to those plans, which included installing pumps, building a canal and things of that nature, it also required elevation of roadways to include Gold Spray and Beach Avenue. And this project is a request for $3 million, basically to ensure that we do elevate Beach and Avenue, and we make the drainage, North Beach Drainage Project whole. After the North Beach project, this is a recommendation for the Yorktown Boulevard project. Also, as City Council is aware, as we speak, we have a design and about to go into construction. The expansion of Yorktown Boulevard from Rod Field to what's known as the Mud Bridge. This recommendation right here will be making the improvements to the last segment of the corridor, which is from Mud Bridge to Walden Road. If you recall in the original proposal, staff was recommending that the road be improved from Oso Bridge to Flower Bluff, but after feedback and engagement with City Council members, we have reduced those limits from Oso Bridge to Waldron instead of Laguna Shores. And that's reflected in the price tag.
Okay.
A couple pictures of Yorktown. That then brings us into District 1 projects, specifically with Rand Morgan Road. This is a TxDOT facility. We do have a maintenance agreement in place with TxDOT where the city is maintaining responsibility for Rand Morgan. I'm sorry, the maintenance responsibility for Rand Morgan. And if you're familiar with the corridor, you're fully aware that basically the residential growth and development along that corridor is outpacing the capacity of the roadway. For example, that road has been identified as the target for a new 900 development home. I'm sorry, single-family dwelling development that's going to be built on the roadway. Unfortunately, the corridor hasn't kept pace. There's no sidewalks. It's a narrow corridor, and they're building the residential developments and forcing kids to continue to traverse the roadway without sidewalks, without crosswalks, back and forth to school. And it's as evidenced by the pictures that's depicted before you.
And Neiman, you mentioned there's some extensive housing being built, or soon to be built in the area. Okay.
In addition to Rand Morgan, we have Sam Rankin Road. Sam Rankin Road was a request that the Port of Corpus Christi asked for the city to consider. The Port of Corpus Christi has secured an $8.5 million grant to repair the roadway from Port Road all the way down to IH 37. And the port, being the good partners that they are, had made us aware of that roadway and said, hey, if you all want to take this opportunity to make the utility improvements to the roadway, we're all ears. So this request would not be for surface improvements because that will be covered by the grant. This request is for $3 million simply to do the stormwater and utility improvements under the roadway. We then have South Staples Access Road, District 2.
Okay, Councilman Pusley. So go ahead.
Yes, sir.
You have a question?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. So going back to Rand Morgan Road, just real quickly.
Yes, sir.
Is this design going to include widening that street, or is it just still going to be a 2-lane?
That's correct. It's going to include the widening because we're fully aware of the fact that it's too narrow a roadway.
Widening to 4-lane, 3-lane, what are we doing?
For the master plan, sir.
I can't hear you right now.
For the master plan, is there 4 lanes in the 4-lane subdivided road?
Gosh, we're just designing, so I think we've got to do some study on what that is.
Yeah, Jeff, come up to the microphone. But what he said, Councilman, is they're uncertain right now. But we do know is we need a queuing lane, like a right turn dedicated lane. There could be a center turn lane. So we're looking at all the right-of-way. We know that the drainage ditches aren't the best, and we need sidewalks. So we have to see how much we can fit in the right-of-way. We know we need sidewalks. We need a dedicated turn lane to queue up to the school, and there should be some type of center turn lane. Those are the primary issues we're aware of.
Well, it desperately needs to be more than 2-lane.
Right, we agree. So it may not be consistently 3 or 4 lanes, but we know the queuing is an issue. You brought it to our attention numerous times when people are queuing into that road to get to the school.
Well, just hopefully y'all pay specific attention on how the traffic is in the morning as compared to during the general day.
Right. And
how people have to get in and out of the subdivision that is existing there now to the Toloso Midway Intermediate School campus, how the school buses have to get in and out of that becomes a 1-lane horseshoe going in and out.
Yeah.
And we have to pay, I think, specific attention to how that works in our design process.
Yes, sir.
So that we help solve the problems that they have now and also address the problems that are going to be or the issues that will be created by the new subdivision across the street.
Yes, sir, definitely. Yes, sir.
Okay. We agree, Councilman.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. This is about South Staples, District 2. Kind of along the same lines as Mr. Pusley was asking about Rand Morgan. When we redesign this street, or reconstruct it, I'm sorry, are we going to be looking at taking out some of these medians?
That's definitely something that we could look into, sir. Once we are able to get this approved by council, we will be performing some preliminary engineering, which will do the traffic counts, identify the needs of the corridor, and that really will drive the design. So we definitely will have more fidelity on, what can be accomplished versus what is needed by that corridor.
Sure, and I'm not necessarily suggesting to purely take out the medians, but do something so that makes everything more accessible. So I have driven on this street a lot, I'm sure everybody has, and these streets on the side that connect to the houses, they seem to be forgotten quite a bit. And I think that is because of the access. But if you look at it, it does look worse than the regular road.
Roger, sir.
So, sorry, Councilman, member. Not meaning to jump over into your district, but just trying to help.
Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. Oh, man, I am feeling really neglected here. Not just me, of course. I'm speaking about the constituents in District 2. First of all, I've spent lots of time with Public Works, in particular, Ernie, and some of your other staff regarding sidewalks. Sidewalks is a big issue for District 2, and it was at the time, it was, I think, $1 million. Now, hopefully, maybe if we could get it up to $2 million, but we had already identified, Ernie had identified at least 2 streets, but of course, there's multiple streets and multiple areas and addresses. I mean, I myself collected 80 addresses from calls, from pictures, from because people have been asking about sidewalks. So I don't even see this in the presentation. I have it. I asked Ernie to send me the presentation, but is there a reason why it's not included in this bond proposal now?
It is in the presentation, ma'am. If you refer to the back pages in the presentation that was provided to you all, and I believe is currently sitting before you all, we had identified over $75 million worth of projects that currently aren't in the proposal, but we recognize has been brought to us either by community members or by city council members themselves. So we are wholly prepared to present those additional projects as well. And again, it's the will of the council if you all want to add $1 million or $2 million sidewalk project into the project. That's the will of council, and that's what Steph's going to do.
Okay, so just to be clear, this would be a pilot program for District 2. We already have at least, again, 2 streets identified, but I'm sure, we are ready to go. I mean, we can provide all kinds of addresses, and because I know that Peter does not like to move on a project unless we have the specifics. Okay.
That's true.
Right. And so it just makes it, clear for everyone. And I want the public to know that that's, one of the main reasons that I ran is because of these types of issues that have been neglected for decades. So again, this is something that is very personal to me, but more so to all the people that have been living and waiting for their sidewalks to be addressed. So anyway, I just wanted to say I'm very disappointed that it was not at least brought up in the initial presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Barrera. Oh, I thought you said you.
Well, she was gone. Now she went back on.
Okay, one other. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mayor. One other thing. Thank you, Councilman Hunter, about that medium on Staples. How about this? How about we introduce maybe some trees? We could maybe put some crepe myrtles or something that could beautify that area. Just something to think about. Leave the medium, but include some greenery, maybe some trees.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Councilman Barrera.
Just to component of district, once again, it's an area that I drive frequently. Santa Fe, was that anywhere on the radar? No? Okay.
No, sir. This is the first time hearing about it.
Just asking. Okay, yes, because I didn't see it that she had requested it, and I know when I drive there regularly, I mean, it has its challenge. It looks like it's been overlaid frequently.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, hey, no is a perfectly good answer.
Right, sir. If we bring back up the presentation, The next recommended project is Alameda. This is a continuation project. The design was funded in bond 2022, and this request is for $12 million, for $17 million for the construction of the Alameda corridor, or this segment of Alameda Street. So just a few pictures depicting it.
Councilman Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. And I am kind of skipping ahead, but since we're talking about Alameda, thank you for including Doddridge to Everhart, which I think is much more needed than this. I mean, the worst thing on this road is alligator cracks. I don't even think there's a pothole on it. But Airline to Everhart's worse than both sections of Alameda, considerably. I mean, there's a divot, there's two of them actually, that are probably 1.5 feet deep and as wide as a car. So I think, personally, as someone who also drives this road very, very often, I think Airline to Everhart, actually really Montclair, because we've already done Ennis Joslin to Montclair-ish area, or the old Montclair. By the way, they have a basketball court. It's still there. And it's CCISD selling the property. So your solution is solved, Coach. But from Montclair all the way to Everhart, I think Alameda's at its worst, at least up until Texan Trail. I mean, yes, there are alligator cracks here. And if we were to start working on it, as Jeff Edmonds used to tell us all the time, this is about the time you start working on the roads. But I think the other streets are in just far, far worse shape, or the other portion of this street. So, but thank you for including Everhart to Doddridge.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Klein.
Yeah, thank you. I would just echo Councilman Hunter's comments about Alameda. That section from Airline up to Everhart is in really, really bad shape. There's some potholes there, but I think most of it is just either poor construction or it's just not been maintained, or perhaps utility cuts have wreaked havoc with the road bed there, especially over near Windsor Park Elementary School. To Councilman Bedetta's point about Santa Fe, I would agree as well. That street as well, again, it's not broken apart. I don't know if there's any even alligatoring on it or potholes. It appears to me to be, one man's opinion is that it was just really poorly constructed in the first place. I mean, if you take a styrofoam cup of coffee, boiling hot coffee, down Santa Fe at the posted speed limit, you're going to find yourself at the burn hospital.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, and sir, Rhonda just made me aware, reminded me that Alameda Street from Airline to Everhart was in bond 2022 for $13.3 million, and that segment of the road is currently in design. Roger. Roger. Thank you, sir. So then the final segment of Alameda, after a few years of continued effort to improve that corridor, is this request for $3.5 million, where this funding will pay for the design of Alameda from Doddridge to Everhart.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So then that takes us into District 3. Here, the first project for District 3 recommendation is Bear Lane, which is a commercial corridor. And as we've been made aware by Councilman Barrera, the RTA is not headquartered there, but does maintain a major facility along that corridor. Therefore, they do have an interest in seeing that roadway improved. So in response, the RTA is pursuing a grant to improve or pay for the funding to improve Bear Lane. The city manager did speak with the CEO of the RTA, and we're looking at partnering on this project where the city would pay for the design of the project, and in turn, the RTA will utilize the grant funds to pay for the construction and improvements to the surface and roadway.
They would. Let me just rephrase it slightly. They're going to work with us to contribute towards the construction.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, Councilmember Bennett.
is that regardless of whether or not they get the funding? Or-
Yes, it is, Councilman. So they preliminarily have submitted the application for the grant, but they said if they can't amend that application, they would work diligently to secure funding, either in their operating account or some other means in the future when we're ready for the construction dollars.
Okay, and just, I was curious, Peter, it just came up. Is there a possibility of us using Type B funds for this?
Probably so. It's a commercial corridor, so yes.
I mean,
the Type B funds are probably won't have any material dollars until 2025. 2024 is somewhat utilized already, so maybe some in 2024, more in 2025, 2026.
It's just that, I mean, obviously all the people that work out there are voters, but, if we can use that, because this is more of from an economic development standpoint, I mean, I know it's a commercial street.
Yeah.
It's a commercial street.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're open to that possibility,
yeah.
I think, there's more that there's obviously, we talked about the various other streets that had some needs.
Right.
I mean, if there's that possibility, and if this body would be interested in doing that, I don't want to upset the apple cart too much. It's just, that's part of the reason why we want to have these workshops.
Right, yeah, good idea in the workshop. So the 2.5 is for design, and I would say move forward with that, because the construction could be funded with the Type B. And again, it won't be till 2025, really, 2026, so we could get it shovel ready. It could be a good candidate project for the Type B commercial corridor. For the construction part of it, that plus the partnering with the RTA would make it a great project.
And what do we think the budget's going to be?
What was the total budget for construction right now?
15 million, sir.
15 million?
Yeah, 15 million.
Yeah.
So we're recommending concrete because of the bus weight.
I understand that.
So that would be that's why I would make it a great candidate for Type B RTA partnership, and maybe even some of the next bond for the construction. Because the Type B generates about 3 to 4 million a year for the road work. You know what I mean?
Go ahead.
Well, did y'all state why why all of it couldn't go through Type B?
It would take It would take 5 years. If Type B money is dedicated.
No, for the design.
No, the 2.5.
The 2.5.
Because the Type B money for partial, the next year that we're looking at availability is this next coming budget. And already some of that money has been pledged because of another project that the team is working on. So there's probably about 1.5 to 2 million that would be available. So it could. We're not ruling it. For Type B.
But not till 2025.
Yeah.
2020.
There's some in 2024, but you're probably talking 2024. Maybe you might have to dip into 2025.
I think it's worth a discussion.
Yeah, we can look further into it as an option.
I think it's worth a discussion. I mean, that's the whole point to this today, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Or did you have, you done?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yes, and as Councilman Barrera stated, Berry Lane is more commercial in nature, but the following recommended project for District 3 are more residential in nature, which includes $2 million for Allen Crest, $2 million for Shannon, and that would then take us into District 4. For District 4, we currently have recommending Holly Road construction only. The project is currently in design, and this funding would be $11 million to go ahead and execute the design and improve the roadway. We then have Graham Road design only for $3 million. And a neighborhood cluster known as Terra Estates for $3.7 million. In addition to those residential roadways being addressed, we have also recommended $1 million to be allocated for improvements to the JFK Causeway, which include signage, striping, and addressing road geometries under the JFK Causeway near Pier 37 and Snoopy's. This is under the roadway, sir? This is under the roadway where we have the parking lot, the boat ramps, and the commercial establishments. That's correct. Under the bridge. That's correct.
Yeah, and we just secured a 50-year lease with GLO for that property. But we did that first because it was bond 18 money, but we only had 2 years left on the right-of-way easement or whatever, the ownership right. So we got that done just this spring for 50 years. So this would be,
That then takes us into District 5, where we have a request for $3.3 million for the design of Cimarron. $2.5 million.
I'm sorry, just go a little slower on the pictures. So
I'm sorry.
Yes, because they tell the story, you know.
$2.5 million for the design of Acushnet. $2.5 million for the design of LIPS. I'm sorry. $2.5 million for the design of Grand Junction.
Councilman Hernandez.
Okay. I specifically requested that all the projects in District 5 be design only, simply because the one project that we did include for project wouldn't have gotten done until 2 years later anyway. I mean, we're still waiting on Aaron on design, and that was a project that, you know, by the time you get it designed, 2 years later, you're already at the next bond cycle before you even get to bidding the construction. So I just didn't think it would be prudent to not have design for all these projects going forward and then have them picked up in the next bond cycle. However, I do think some of the estimates for these are a little higher than they should be. Probably should be $2 million or less on everyone except Acushnet. You know, some of the other design only for some of the other streets were $2 million or $2.3 million. So I think we're kind of padding it a little bit. I'd rather move some of that funding over to some of the trails or Bill Witt. If we
Ratna, address that because I think there's some right-of-way acquisition in some of these.
I'm Ratna Potamutu Engineering Services. These are just the estimates. So when we get into the detailed design, we will look into how much it's going to cost. But at the same time, there is a lot of right-of-way acquisition, stormwater sewer design, and the traffic signal improvements associated with these projects. So that's the reason we just put some numbers over there.
Well, I understand that, but since I don't have any construction projects for this particular bond, there'd be nowhere else to put it except someplace outside of District 5. Is that correct?
There's no construction projects in District 5 at this point.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. That's why I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you overestimate it or you have funding left over, it goes somewhere else.
It stays in the prop.
Again, it goes to another project outside of District 5.
Right. District design projects, what we do is generally we design the project, and if you have savings, when it grows into the construction, we move these funds to the construction.
But I thought it had to stay within that particular prop.
If it's a construction project and there are savings, then it stays in the prop.
The difference is that we don't complete these when you just do the design only, so it'll stay in the project until the project's completed.
Okay, can I get a legal on that one? I want to make sure that if we're because it's two different it's two different bonds, right? Bond packages.
Get reallocated.
So if it's just design only and you have leftover funding, it has to stay within that particular bond package, right?
No, it can move to another bond program year. Like it could move, what the example they're using, exactly what it could do, it could move to 2026 bond for the construction.
Okay, can you verify that? So
Yeah,
do we
we'll
have to
get
have
your
the
opinion.
language that says specifically design and possible construction?
Right, that's what we'll say.
Okay,
We
if
have
that's the
that-
case,
yeah.
then I'll leave it at that.
Okay, great. We'll put that in the language that it's design and beginning construction.
Okay.
That could include things like right-of-way or traffic street lights or moving utility poles, what have you.
And also specifically, this goes back to the budget policy that I'd asked for about doing these things in phases, doing the
Right.
design and then the construction at a later
Absolutely.
date. That way the estimates are good for when you go to construction bid.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Roy. Oh,
Oops, I'm sorry. I think I just shut myself off.
okay.
There you go.
So the only thing I'm looking at is that when you take a district like District 5 and you have multiple projects in the design stage only, right?
Yes, sir.
$16 million, I think, is somewhere. I did the rough math. When those projects are moved to the next stage with the next bond, right? Now you've got 16 projects. I mean, not 16. How many projects is it, council member?
I believe it's 5.
I think it's more than that. But you've got six projects out there in the design phase that have to go to the next phase, which then kind of monopolizes what you're going to have to do in terms of money the next time. Because if you take a look at the other districts, and you look at District 1, I might have 1 or 2, right, that are in the design phase. So I think we need to also take a look at overall across the board how many projects that we're going to really put in the design phase, because it's going to be playing like leapfrog. It's going to catch up to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I definitely understand, and because basically what you're saying that there'd be more shovel-ready projects for District 5 than other districts by the time we get to bond 2026. But staff, again, would make recommendations based off of rough proportionality, and if there was going to be more construction projects dedicated to one district over the other, that'd be a policy decision that's made by council.
Right, but I'm just looking at the feasibility, because on the other hand, you don't want to sit there and have these projects in the design phase and not carry them forward. That kind of defeats the whole purpose. So on one hand, I just want to make sure that we're committed that and it goes for all the ones that are in the design phase only. If you know that they're in the design phase, then you have to look forward and say, okay, realistically, what is our exposure going to be when we get to the next bond? Because if you stop and you don't do anything with them, what was the whole purpose of going through and doing the design phase now? Right?
Yeah, check it, sir.
Thank you.
I didn't get to go, Mayor.
Councilman Hunter.
I was about to give Councilman Hernandez props on that, because that's called fighting for your district and thinking ahead. It's a very, very smart move. So very good, Councilmember Hernandez. Even though I probably won't be voting for it, I think you're doing a great job. For LIPES, right now, this is a question for you. So before we had talked about, and since my memory's so short term right now, where are we at LIPES from airline to Staples?
Airline to Staples.
Or Cimarron to Staples?
Cimarron to Staples. I think
That's where all the people live, right? We had talked about this in the past. I just can't remember what's on every bond.
Yeah, that's not on the bond.
Okay. So that area, sorry, Councilman Hernandez, I don't mean to be jumping in your district like I did Sylvia earlier, but that's where everybody lives. That's where all the taxpayers are, and that's where the road's at its worst. So just a suggestion in the future, I hope that's our next spot on lights.
Noted, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Hernandez.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of go through this. Yes, and to Councilman Roy's comments, yeah, that's kind of the plan, was to have something ready to go. But it's also going in accordance with the budget policy I asked for us to try and accomplish. Now, I don't have any issues with I understand you're trying to get this rough proportionality thing, but I mean, with the citywide projects, it's really not that, right? And I got to say, on the last bond package in 2022, I had, if you didn't count Yorktown as a citywide project and count as a District 5 project, District 5 would have had a larger portion of that funding, just simply because of the size of that road. I don't have any problems with that. Sometimes you have needs in different parts of the city that are required. Lower Upper Broadway is an example. There's needs on there. The fact that it's in District 1, okay, that's fine. I don't have any golf courses, or at least any municipal golf courses that function. I won't get into that. I have a wildlife preserve that used to be a golf course. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't really matter. I think what you're trying to do is trying to have this appearance of balance amongst the council districts. But I mean, realistically, you're not hiding anything. I mean, it's obvious that the Upper Broadway project's in District 1, and much to Councilman Barrera's argument about people work on that street. Well, people work on Saratoga. People work on Airline. I mean, it doesn't really. I mean, they're not all from that district. I can use one of our council members, Councilman Roy, lives over in Cal Allen, but works over in District 3, right? Actually, it's District 3.
District 3.
2.
It's 3.
He told me.
Okay.
I'm omnipotent. I'm everywhere. No.
Used to work in District 5.
We have an office in 2, and we have an office in 5, I think.
3. It's 3.
3.
It's 3. Okay, so I mean, I don't want to get into that. I mean, I'm okay with it being a little bit more in District 1. I don't have a problem with that for this cycle. And when we go to the next cycle, if it's a little bit higher than somewhere else, that's okay too. I mean, ultimately it's for the good of the city. So I don't think that's quite the issue. And yes, I am planning ahead. I don't have any projects that are shovel ready right now. Like I said, the problem I had with Aaron. Like I said, I don't think we're going to get there. But anyway, that's what I wanted to get across, is that this preparing for the future and having those good projects where you can start right away within 6 months of the bond package is a good idea. Thank you.
Councilman Hunter.
Thank you. Councilman Roy? Oh, okay. Sorry. Since we're going to bring that up, Councilman Hernandez, which I partially agree with you, although I couldn't figure out part of what you were saying. If you're paying taxes in this portion of the district, that's where the district money goes. That's how it should be labeled. In your presentation, at the beginning of your presentation, you said we're trying to be equitable to every district.
Yes, sir.
I think it should be measured on where the taxpayers are paying that money. I don't care where you work. I work in District 1. If I can ever make it down there through all the potholes on Santa Fe. But yeah, it should be measured on where the tax money is coming from and what district they live in, not where they work, unless, of course, there's some exceptions. If they own the building down there, I guess you could argue that, but no, not if you work down there. It's where you're paying your taxes from.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If we bring back up the presentation. The remaining design-only projects for District 5 are Rodfield Extension, Brook, and a trail connectivity project, which is being requested for $1.5 million. That concludes the street projects. We'll stand by for any additional questions regarding streets.
No, streets. It's for parks. Sorry, I'm just getting ready.
No, I think we're okay. Let's move on.
All right, then that takes us into proposed candidate projects for parks, with the first being a request for $10 million to allocate for the replacement of the clubhouse at the Oso Golf Center. As stated before, this building has not been improved upon for decades, and staff's request is that the building be replaced with a modernized facility that includes modernizing equipment, expanding the pro shop, and bringing it in line with 2024 amenities that's offered by similar facilities across the United States, if not Texas.
Neiman, what district is this in, technically?
Technically, it's in District 4, but we have it as citywide.
Oh, okay.
In addition to the Oso Golf Center, we have a $2 million request from the Texas State Aquarium, and this request is basically in keeping with the same partnership that we were pursuing in Bond 2022, where $3 million was allocated to the Texas State Aquarium to help build the Animal Rescue and Wildlife Center. This time, we would like to sustain that partnership by allocating $2 million for the Texas State Aquarium to add additional parking, since a lot of the existing parking is going to be absorbed with the removal of the existing Harbor Bridge.
Mayor, can I? Sorry. Great job on the aquarium. First of all, I want to commend you and the Parks Department. I think out of the needs, outside of the public safety focus, y'all did focus on what is needed more than selecting a street because we want it. Okay, so great job to y'all. I still think you need to be focusing on repairing what we have in a lot of our parks. Gil's favorite word, maintenance. So the aquarium, great job. I think the golf clubhouse is way too expensive, and we shouldn't be hiring people from Colorado, but we've already talked about that. Thank you, Councilman Pusley, for the helicopter at Sherrill Park. It's a great job. And that's great news about the sea turtles. Been working on that since before I was on council. So are we allowed to talk about that?
We can, yes, Councilman. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up.
So the sale.
Right, the USS Corpus Christi sale should be.
You gave us word on Monday.
Right, and then let's see, today is Tuesday, so this morning I received another update, and they expect that the transporters, is 3 big semi-trucks, that the sale will be here tonight.
Wow, that's really exciting.
Yeah, they'll be finally here.
Thank y'all for that. Congratulations. If I could vote on Sherrill Park by itself, I'd vote yes. Greenwood Sports Complex is great. Cole Park parking improvements is needed because all those homes are kind of tired of people parking in their driveways. Commodore's Park, I'm going to leave to I guess you out there, Dan. I think it's kind of about time we've started focusing on Commodore's Park. Most of the amenities out there have been put up by the public and have been put up by other public officials. If you go look out there, it has all the donations list attached to every single I don't know, what would you call them, amenities? I don't know exactly what you'd call it. Benches, amenities, gazebos, everything out there has been donated by individuals. And I think we should also learn from that. So if we can implement that kind of participation from the community, which I know we try, and maybe put a bigger focus on some of the other parks, I think that would be great. And that's all I got. I think the boat ramp's a good idea just because they're always asking for it, but I think that we could use that, we could pay for that with the TERS money that we're getting from the White Cap project. I mean, that's $1 billion project. It's going to bring in a ton of funds. We don't need to be putting that on the bond. I think we should be focusing on that with the TERS funding if it's possible, maybe not. But thank you again for what y'all are doing. Please focus on basketball rims, putting nets on all of them. If you're able to grab them, which I'm not. I'm sure you can, Coach. You probably can just reach up and touch it. But a lot of the kids that are playing out there, if you are able to grab the rim, you're going to have to go get a tetanus shot right after. So we need to maybe, I don't know, re-weld, repaint, whatever, backstop, replace the backstops on a lot of, that are used for a lot of the practice teams. They're so bad that the fence line is pointing towards, I guess you would call home plate. So imagine running into that. That could be pretty bad.
Yes, sir.
A lot of the playground equipment, which y'all been doing a really good job of replacing over the last 5 years. Continue to please focus on that. But I think the Parks Department did a really good job.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Councilman Presley.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We're into the park section, right?
Well, we're on District 1, I'm sorry, this Texas State Aquarium parking.
Well, that's what I was going to cover next, so Jesse could go home. Is the Texas State Aquarium parking. I think that's a great project and going to be very well needed as things change around the aquarium.
Yeah.
At our last board meeting, we talked extensively about the parking requirements around the aquarium and how it's never sufficient, and it would be extremely costly and probably beyond the scope of their affordability to build a parking garage.
Right.
I think this is a great thing for the city to get involved in. That's becoming, Jesse, if you want to come up and speak to any of that, the numbers that we're seeing at the aquarium are just astoundingly good for this community.
Sure. Thank you for that. Jesse Gilbert, Texas State Aquarium. We saw about 550,000 visitors in FY23. We're on the road to probably 500 to 525 this year. Economic impact last year was 195 million, about 1,100 jobs supported. So it's growing, and we're about to announce a pretty large expansion, which we think will increase visitorship to North Beach. And right now on Saturdays and Sundays, June, July, August, there's really no parking left on North Beach. So I think it helps safety and just the overall aesthetics of that. And we're going to put some into that too. We're going to operate a shuttle and make sure that guests can get around North Beach for free.
So, and the proposed location will help to remove some blight that's there today.
That's correct, yeah.
Right, yes, sir. So this will help to beautify North Beach, our continued effort to revitalize and beautify North Beach. And we do owe Jesse gratitude here for thinking ahead.
Yes.
He knows that when the new Harbor Bridge is demolished, he's going to lose a lot of parking spaces.
Yes.
So he's thinking ahead and saying, hey, we need to build parking now in anticipation of that. That's a great business model. So, good points, Councilman.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah. All right, good deal.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, Jesse, thank you. Thank you for being here. Councilman Hernandez.
Mayor,
yes.
I want to just cover a couple other things real quickly, if I could, please. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to talk just a minute about the District 1 parks, and then I know Councilman Roy is going to follow up here. And I agree with him. The work that we're going to do at the Veterans Park, the Sherrill Veterans Park, is really a community project. It's going to have a community impact. It will be, I think it has the potential to be a great tourist attraction for this area if we do it right. And there are people that will come here to visit that park, and we'll actually be able to tell it. So, we've got some really good things going on. I guess, Peter, my question here is, there's a cost estimate of $2 million you've plugged in here. I just don't know how, in talking with the architects, I just don't know how far down the road $2 million is going to get us.
Yeah. Do we know, Phillips, Turner's Ramirez total cost estimate for the master plan they gave us?
Yeah, it was close to $10 million, but then we are proposing $2 million, and we will be taking a phased approach for the park.
Okay, so this will get us 1/5 of the way. So the master plan estimated cost is about $10 million, and some of the pictures you could see on the slides that we had, but this will do about 1/5, maybe about 20% or so of the work, to include the helicopter corner, the pad for the helicopter, the walkways, the treatment that's needed, and then the USS Corpus Christi sail on the other corner. But hopefully we can get those two done with the $2 million.
Okay. Well, I know in visiting with the veterans, one of their big issues is the shaded coverings for people to sit in the amphitheater area, shaded covering for the veterans band whenever they have events there. Many of these folks are quite elderly now, and when we have a lot of these functions, it's during the summertime, it's extremely warm, and the shade structures we have down there are completely inadequate. So I'm hoping that we're going to look at that. I don't know what your phased approach right now is going to look like, but I'm hoping we can have some discussion about that and about how that steps forward. I think that's extremely important. And I've had a number of conversations. I go to the Veterans Roundtable meeting almost every week. And this is high on their priority list, I will tell you.
Yes, sir.
So, okay. And then I want to jump to Labonte Park, if I could, for just a moment. You know, I discussed this a little bit at our last meeting, and we've got $1.75 million plugged in here for a baseball field and a softball field with a gravel parking lot. And I want to talk just a minute about all of the things that we've done across this city over the last few years in the way of parks and park improvement, and the things that are going up in many parts of this town. 99.9% of them I voted for to support. I still think that they're great ideals. If you look at, and I say all of this with all due respect to my fellow council members here, as an at-large council member, I think it was William Jennings Bryan said that being vice president was worth a warm bucket of something, but that's kind of the way I feel sometimes as an at-large council member. But I am going to stick up for my hometown, and that's the northwest area of this city. And we don't have a tax reinvestment zone in Toloso Midway or Cal Island. We don't have many of the amenities that the rest of this city has been enjoying for a number of years. And so I think what we're looking for is a little more plug into some of the funds that are going to be appropriated for parks and recreation. We were able to get the old water treatment plant torn down. Thank you very much, Peter, for helping support that. But I would just like to see a little bit more money spent at Labonte Park. We have a great need for it. We have a huge Little League program out there. And Coach, I know if you go out to, just take a Saturday morning and go out to Oil Belt Little League or go to Northwest Pony League Park and look at what's going on. There's 1,000 kids involved in those two programs. And every Saturday and Sunday and all throughout the week, there's kids involved in those programs. My phone rings off the hook all the time about, does the city have another place where we can practice baseball, where we can practice football, where we can have access to a basketball court, all those kind of things. And I don't think we have to, right now, design a very expensive solution to this. A very inexpensive four-way backstop system at Labonte Park with just some backstops and, marked off areas where kids could use them for practice fields would be a great step forward. And then down the road, if the city chooses to expend more money in that and put a concession stand in and pave roads and all that, that'll be great. But right now, we're just looking for some relief in this area. And I would hope that we could maybe look at expendings. And I don't know, you may be able to do it with $1.75 million, but I don't think putting two baseball diamonds here is what we're looking for. If you do a typical four spread baseball diamond design, you'd have 3 baseball fields and 1 softball field. We have a strong girls softball program in the northwest area of this city, as you know. And so these are things that I think we really need to look at and put some time and effort into them and money. And make the people of the Northwest area feel like that we're not getting shortchanged all the time. And there are many places in this city where we've enjoyed a lot of great things, and I'm proud for them. I'm proud for the city. But we now need to focus on a part of the city that I feel like has been overlooked in some instances. So that's my soapbox for the day.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Hernandez.
Real quick question on the parking lot over there. Is that city property or is that, it's not our property?
On Levante Park?
No, he's talking about for the state aquarium, that's private.
For the state?
Privately owned, sir. You're talking about for the property that the aquarium's talking about purchasing.
For the parking lot?
Yeah.
It would be privately
owned.
Right, it'd be privately owned. It would be the ownership of the Texas State Aquarium.
Oh, I thought it was ours.
We're purchasing it. The aquarium's actually going to purchase the lot itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's the improvements to it and expansion of it kind of in that general area of where the bridge is now. But we're buying the lot.
Okay, so help me understand this. Sure. Are we improving it and then you're purchasing it after we improve it?
Oh, no. We're trying to get under contract now.
So you're purchasing it and then we're going to use general obligation bonds to improve it?
To improve it, and then our hope is to expand to continue to grab more parking as we need it. Yeah.
Councilman, if I may, who owns the land now?
It's a private entity that owns it.
So we don't?
No, we don't, nor does the aquarium. It's something they're trying to acquire.
That's correct.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm not totally sure that this is the best vehicle for this improvement. I think this would be more suited for like a type B funding for this improvement. It might be a hard sell to obligate taxpayers to build a parking lot for a private organization. And it's nothing against you, and I think there's a vehicle for this, but I just think it probably should be our type B
you could
doing this.
Type B economic development. It's taxpayer money as well, but then we could put $2 million in Levante.
I understand that, but this is when I say taxpayer money, it's sales tax that is earmarked for economic development, which you can make an argument for. They bring visitors and tourists in there,
Absolutely.
and you can make that argument, right? You can say this is what it was designed for.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit more difficult when you're putting this on property tax back.
Can look at that.
Just take a look at it. I think it's a good project. I want to make sure we're using the correct vehicle that is easy to defend, because we have to sell this bond package.
Understood.
And so it might be something to just move that to a different location.
Yeah, to Councilman Pusley's point, we could take the $2 million and put it in Levante with the 1.75. That would definitely get.
Or you could split it with Levante and Bill Witt.
Bill Witt?
Or
They're both regional parks.
Or we can add to the Veterans Park.
Mayor, could you turn my microphone?
Okay, Councilman, you're good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilman Roy.
We'll get it done, I promise.
Appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Okay. First of all, I would like, when I take a look at District 1 and what we have going on, there are improvements going on at West Guth Park, appreciative of that skate park that we're doing, the dog park, the increase in the shade and all of those things. I also agree with Councilmember Pusley in terms of looking at baseball fields, softball fields, particularly in the Calallen area, up, because we do have oil belt, but oil belt right now is it's overcrowded, it's jam-packed, it's hard for people to get practice time there. But here's my question, and I think Councilmember Hernandez brought up a good point in terms of looking at the aquarium. We do have a TERS down there. We have some other vehicles that we might want to look at that might be more appropriate. But my question is, under District 1, and I understand that part of the compliance, in order to, we have to provide a pool in the Hillcrest area. So if I understand this right, we got $5.5 million that TxDOT's kicking in.
That's correct, sir.
We got $4.5 million that we're kicking. We'll be at 10 million. So that means we should have a pool that looks like Councilmember Hernandez's pool out there, right? Because it's 10 million, right? Am I right?
That whole center is
FHWA money so much?
The 5.5 from the state.
5.5 and 4.5.
4.5 from the
Takes us
city.
to 10 million.
The all-in cost at Bill Witt was about 13 million. About 13 with design, you know. Yeah, but it's going to look real close. It's going to be an aquatic center. Yep.
And so our requirement was to do an aquatic center in that area.
Yeah. What was that?
Our requirement was to build an aquatic center in that area?
It was to do a swimming pool, but we want to make it that it's nice and it has multi-city use. So there's a lot of leagues that don't have swimming facilities across the city. Schools from all the districts, all the 6 school districts, not to mention the Hillcrest residents and multifamily complex by the Buccaneers School on Leopard.
And so we're still also required to go through and they agreed with the other parks that we're building there, right?
That's correct, yes, sir.
So that's 4 other parks, well, 3 other parks, and the other park that we're going to, is the Ben Garza, that we're going to enhance the baseball field there and do some lighting there and a parking, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So really, at the end of the day, they'll have an aquatic center, 2 new parks, 1 revamp park, which will be the Orville Williams Park, right?
That's correct. They'll have TCR's Park will be new.
Yeah. The basketball court.
Washington Coles area will be new. As you know, that used to be a school site. It's going to be renovated to actually be now a recreational area. Then we have Ben Garza, which will be refurbishing, and H.J. Williams Park will basically be a refurbishing as well.
Yeah.
And I'd be remiss not to also remind Council that in addition, we will have the multimodal path that provides connectivity from the Hillcrest area into the North Beach area. So
this aquatic center will be proximity, what's going to be the closest park outside of this aquatic center?
TCR's and H.J. Williams.
Okay.
So, in fact, from the Washington Coles area to TCR's and the location for the pool, TxDOT is already ahead of us. They're building a 10-foot sidewalk, multimodal path that leads from the Washington Coles areas and into that region near TCR's Park and the targeted location for the pool. So,
okay. I was just trying to think where, because I agree with Councilmember Pusley, if we could shore up a little bit more money for, those baseball fields, especially. I don't know how much lighting costs, but I think it would be important. I know that we were talking second phase, maybe third phase, concession stand and lighting at night, because the nice thing is that the weather's usually pretty good where they can practice all year long, but when it gets dark early, it's tough.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to make sure that we do the most that we can with that 1.75 million.
Checking, yes, sir.
And we're recommending, if we follow through with this plan that came up from Councilman Hernandez and Pusley, that we could reallocate even more to the Labonte Park.
You mean as far as
if we fund the Texas State Aquarium parking lot through the Type B sales tax?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
That would be, and Pusley has a good point, the Labonte or that area of town has been underfunded, in the last couple of bond programs. So this would be a good shot in the arm to double the amount of funding for the baseball complex there. We're supportive of that. We're big fans of Labonte Park. That needs way more amenities.
Yeah, and I just have to understand, because sometimes, unfortunately, if you don't live out in the Northwest, a lot of people, they really don't understand, even though when you take a look at Oil Belt and you look at Annaville and you look at some of the resources like West Goof, that we're still talking about when you have a growing population out there in the actual Calallen area off of Northwest.
Right.
The new subdivisions that are going in, all of the build there, and they just don't have those amenities.
We agree.
So, okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. And to the Councilman Pusley's point about out in Calallen that there's not a TERS out there, but just to remind people that District 2 does not also have a TERS. So I wanted to point out that the good thing about District 2 is that we do have a lot of parks. We still have, of course, a lot of issues with not having any half courts, as Councilman Hunter has been pointing out. And also, the thing about shades, that's still an issue for a lot of our parks. I mean, just this past Earth Day, I forget what park it was, but there was 72 trees that was in District 3's Councilman Barrera's district. Shannon, I missed out, but we still could use a lot of half courts, of course. But the other thing, again, I'm going to emphasize is sidewalks. Sidewalks, we don't. We need to be able to actually get to the schools, get to the parks, get to our HEBs. And a lot of the residents in District 2, thankfully or unthankfully, I don't know. I mean, I think it's good exercise, but I always see a lot of shopping carts. So that tells me that we have a lot of pedestrians. And so that tells me that, we're in dire need of having our sidewalks, and we may not have the big projects that some of the, the other districts are needing because, we're the older districts. But again, these are the kinds of things that I guess that's why we have districts is because we look out for what is the need for us. So I just want to remind you and the public how important sidewalks are, and I hope that that the rest of the council sees that. Thank you.
Councilman Seckley.
Thanks, Mayor. To Councilman Pusley's point about Labani Park and the need for those type of improvements in District 1, that's the reason that the Perry Place is on the recommended list at this point, because District 4 does not have any aggregate of baseball and softball diamonds on the island or in Flower Bluff, either one. And so although that's not the best scenario for them, it is the largest tract of land that is a city asset at this point that we could add improvements to. So, the Flower Bluff Sports League and some sports leagues on the island have taken off in the last number of years, causing stress at some of our parks that are trying to utilize parks for athletic fields that they weren't built for those, namely Waldron Park, that Ernie and his team were great at getting out there and helping us at least create some sort of a makeshift parking lot. But to that point, that's the reason that the Perry Place fields are on there, so that we can try and get the island and Flower Bluff folks a city-run athletic fields that can be utilized by them. So, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And Councilman Hernandez.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back on the swimming pool that we're talking about. Miller High School just recently started last year a swim team for the high school. It's not quite where other schools are, but I mean, at least it's close by, and they could have a facility instead of having to travel all the way to the south side. That could be an opportunity. There's there's really only 2 pools that are heated currently. That's an auditorium in Collier. Bill Witt will be the 3rd. This could be the 4th in terms of having a place to do lap swimming in the city. So the more that we can utilize or create destinations, I think you can have more people in those areas if you have something that will bring people to it. Plus, this will also give us another opportunity to do swim lessons in a city that is along the coast. So,
yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Barrera.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to wait till you get to District 3 before I start talking about it. I guess Councilman Hunter moved us all over the place. So much of the scene, it sounds like he's going to really vote for all these things. But I just want to stick with the aquatic center. First off, I like where we're going with it. I'd really at some time like to see a presentation on what we're what the overall plan is. I mean, I've heard bits and pieces, and I know what we've included here isn't really, because obviously the renderings that we have here doesn't include the pool, and I know we're just finished that up here just recently to make that decision to do so.
Right.
But I think I know we're already going to go to the public next week, and particularly because it's in District 1, I mean, whatever you could do to come up with that.
Yeah.
I know, and the same thing, to tag on to Councilman Hunter, two things. Number one, I said many times, I played basketball at TC Ayers. Of course, that was a lifetime ago, 2 generations ago probably. And I haven't seen it in any of the renderings, and it could be included. I don't know.
The pool, sir?
No. I'm talking about basketball.
The basketball is at H.J. Williams.
H.J.
Williams and Ben Garza.
Well, Ben Garza, I know for sure. I played ball there too. But if you're looking at, I'm trying to look.
I don't think they're here, Councilman, but we do have them, so we can do a separate, briefing to the council.
Yeah, because I'd like to see that. Now,
that's a great idea.
At TC Ayers, I mean, if you have one at H.J. Williams, okay, that's great. As long as it's walkable. It's just, I haven't seen a presentation on it, and I'd like to be more versed on what it is that we're doing there, because it's going to be a community attraction and a community park.
It's going to be a fun gateway into the city. People are going to see TC Ayers, the Hillcrest Parks as they drive in with the new bridge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the other thing I'd like to find out is that if we do a presentation, then I'd want to see then what the timeline is.
Okay, we have that.
I'd want to see what the timeline is, when the anticipated time for design and construction and completion, and an anticipated date for when we can all be, cutting a ribbon out there.
Yes, sir.
Because this is a community-wide project and it needs to be treated as such. I know I'll talk a little bit later about District 3, but my frustration on the Greenwood ball fields is that I'm the district councilman, and I'm not 100% sure what we're doing out there, because I just get little briefings.
Yes,
now, on the positive note, as many of you know, some of you know, my granddaughter, who's 10 years old, has taken a liking to basketball. And so I was looking at places to play. There's 81 basketball courts that the city of Corpus Christi provides. So that's great news. I've also learned that I'm obviously not in the shape I was before, that a 10-year-old can run circles around me. But I think that's great news. But once again, TC Ayers, we just need to incorporate it into, if it's going to be a community park like a West Guth,
Yeah, it will be, Councilman. So we have, these parks are all in design. There's almost 60-70% designed except for the pool.
Right.
Because we knew we had this commitment to get these done before the old bridge is demolished. I think we have till 2028.
Yeah, something like that.
2027 or something. But anyway, we'll get you that. So they're in design. The total budget is $21 million if it's all approved.
And I think that's the thing that we need to let the community know, that we're leveraging these funds to be able to come up with, another $17 million.
Yeah.
Because this is a Hillcrest. This is, we're facing obviously all the negativity with our water issue, but this is a big investment into the Hillcrest community that we need to make sure that the public knows, and it's important. It's important.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that we stress on that, and then I know I'm not just stuck to twice, right? So I'll be able to talk again when you get to District 3 instead of going through everything.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Peter, I'm curious. We've heard a lot about recreational sports and now basketball and Councilman Barrera did what I was just wondering. How many basketball courts do we have? We hear about one here, one there. And so he said 81, right? Baseball, same thing. So maybe you can provide us with, where are the baseball diamonds or complexes, if you will? Where are they all located within the city, like on a map, so we can see
we can do that.
Where they're located? Because it's very clear that there needs to be some level of equality, and I think that becomes a plan as opposed to someone saying, well, yeah, but I don't have one either, or you know what, let's throw some money over here if you're not going to use it. That there's no rhyme or reason. We need to look, there are children that live across 5 districts, and so we really need to look at all of it to see, well, how old is this one? How much do we already have allocated to this one? And what happens over here? If there's absolutely nothing happening here, then we have a problem. But I think there has to, we have to find a way to address it as opposed to, just on the spot here and there. And there has to be a way, a good methodology to address it, because it's so important. It really is. Baseball, y'all know that. I've been talking about baseball for 8 years now. And not just baseball, but basketball, for example. I wouldn't have guessed 81. I would not have guessed. But to council.
81 basketball court. That's the biggest one. Below.
Do we not have 81?
That you can play on?
Well,
that's just a backboard and a pole.
Well, okay, but
that's the biggest joke.
well, this goes to my next point, though, Councilman Hunter, and that's why we are council members, because we bring forth, and you've said this was my next thing. You have said, you've advocated for, let's fix, right, what we have. If you have a court that you really can't play on, you have a court that there's no net, or we really need to do an assessment of that as well. And that can't be, rocket science. We look at what we have and the condition, 1 through 5, exactly, and then move on. I mean, we somewhat did, we fixed our, St. Andrews, the tennis courts. They'd been sitting there. All it took was a couple of people to come and say, hey, these are in disarray, and we fixed them. And they are very, very well used, as you know, and they did a wonderful job. Parker Park tennis court, same thing. So I think we kind of need to do a little assessments. You might as well throw in little tennis courts too, to see what we have. But that way we see it holistically. So I'd like to request that. Who's up? Councilman Roy and then Councilman Hunter. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. And I can't remember, did I look at those 4 parks only in relationship because we were preparing for our meetings down at the senior center to get those passed for the cab, right?
Yes, sir.
Because I can't remember, and if the council has seen those. I mean, the renderings, the design, and all of those things are amazing. But it brings up my next point, and I think this goes along with what Councilmember Pusley has talked about before, is marketing. Do we have a place where you can go, and I don't think I've seen it in the city, that talks about what's new or not coming events, but coming projects, things that are happening in the city? Because I think people would be really amazed if they saw the pictures and the rendering of those 4 parks, of the entrance to the walkover that you can with the bridge and all that. We have to sell ourselves.
Yes, sir.
And we're not doing a good job of that sometimes. I think by enhancing our site where people can see what's coming up, yes, what we are doing, I think they'll feel like they're getting a better bang for their buck.
That's a good point.
And I think we need to do that.
Yes,
because I'm amazed that my fellow council member hasn't seen those things.
Yes, sir. The council has seen the plans. We call it the Harbor Bridge mitigation.
It's been a while,
strategy.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
But I think
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I think that's the people need to see that.
Yes, sir.
Because a year and a half ago, somebody just came to this area and wonders what's going on, what's the future. Maybe they're trying to make a decision.
Yes, sir.
To live here, to move here. And having something there that will talk about these projects that we're doing in the future and what we're doing for improvements, I think it's vital. I think you should be able to go right to CC Texas, see it right there, click on a button, and go, oh, wow, look what these guys are doing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And as, like you stated, that presentation, specifically when we were asking for the funds to be appropriated to the project, was brought before council with the entire plan. But you're absolutely correct. Since the discussions with all the different agencies, that being TxDOT, the FHWA, and the CAB, was such a protracted discussion, the plan's probably grown dust, and everybody was like, okay, where's the plan? So I agree. I think that it'd be beneficial for us to bring that back to council, just refresh everybody on what the plan is.
And maybe that's where we're asking about how many basketball courts we got, how many softball courts or fields, how many baseball fields. And we could even do something there on that site where you have frequently asked questions.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And give them some information there. But I think we need to start educating people on what we really do have here. and
Definitely,
what
sir.
we're
We can
doing.
get with communications, and I think you're right. We do need to do a better job with revealing upcoming projects for the engineering department, and we can work with communications on that.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry to interrupt earlier, but an easy way to lose someone's support is to nod your head and say we have 81 basketball courts when most of them can't even be used. And I mean most of them. Have y'all been out there to look at all these basketball courts? I mean, some of them don't even have a rim, and you're counting that as one of the 81. And it's more than one basketball court that doesn't have a rim. Most of them don't have nets. Half of them are leaning over or falling over. So why for the last 20 years, you and I have played together on Saturdays. For the last 20 years, we've been using CCISD schools. And I agree with all sports facilities. I think that they are all way behind. And I think Councilman Hernandez needs to be focusing his maintenance concerns on our sports programs as much as he does everything else. Because we need your help from District 5. But all the sports programs, all the sports facilities are way behind. And I know that y'all inherited it, but don't give anybody credit that was here before. That's why we had 20 different Parks and Rec directors. We couldn't figure out how to fix all this. We couldn't figure out where to get the money from. But we need these sports programs to be taken care of, or whatever, sports amenities to be taken care of, because they are in bad shape.
Well, to my point, the assessment. We start with what do we have and what do they need, and we need to maintain and fix our, the infrastructure of basketball courts. We've already started baseball, so I think that's a good start, and y'all have heard everyone. There's absolutely a need for it, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Hernandez?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just had to respond to that in terms of preventive maintenance. And you can ask Mr. Dodd, how many times have I beat you up about Maximo and you putting all your facilities in Maximo? You can nod your head.
Sure.
Right. So, you'd probably have to get with Councilman Hunter as to see, how you install that and how you install basketball courts in a Maximo. How do you determine their condition? I look at the basketball courts in District 5. I even have a little small pocket park over off of Oso Parkway that has a basketball court that actually the net is there, or at least it was when I saw it. So, I have to admit, I don't go through all the parks throughout the city. But, I know that we've had several in District 5. So you're more than welcome. Come over to District 5 and use some of our basketball courts.
All I'm saying is my comment went way over your head. I was trying to say we need you pestering them as much more than you currently do on all of their maintenance issues.
Well, what I want to say is that I do beat them up on that. They do attest to that. So I want to say that that's the case. Like I said, I have not visited other parks outside of District 5, but I'm pretty sure that you can address that.
Maximo, I've heard a million times.
Thanks.
Councilman Pesley.
Yeah, so Peter, this location for this Northside Hillcrest Aquatic Center, in looking at the slide 70 that's here in our book, so I guess I'm trying to understand where this baseball diamond that's on the right-hand picture here, where is that going to be in relation to the swimming pool?
If you look to the exact left of that, Councilman, kind of that gray area, gray-green area to the left.
Yeah.
That right there, that big parcel right now is a lay-down yard for the bridge construction.
Right.
So TxDOT not only is going to give us $5.5 million, but they're going to convey all that property, and the pool will be there in the upper corner of that property.
Okay.
I think it's about, how many acres was it, Neiman? 2 acres or something, 3 acres?
7 acres, sir.
7 acres?
Yeah, 7 acres for where the pool's going to be located.
Really? Okay.
Wow.
So we're going to get a 7-acre site, Councilman. That'll be one of the action items coming up to City Council because we have to accept it. And then we'll build the pool kind of in the upper corner furthest away from, if you look to your far right, you can see that circle thing, the gray circular. That's the kind of the bridge structure, the bridge ramp. a circle, and so we want to keep it away from that, so it's not, people can't throw things over.
Yeah, I sure wish we could get some better graphics here that we can look at associated with because people keep asking me about where this is.
Great. Well, that's why we'll probably have it on the council meeting the 14th, Councilman.
Yeah.
This just happened last week that it was approved, and admittedly we don't have the design of it yet, but Half Associates is under contract working on all the other parks.
Right.
So by the 14th, we'll have a briefing to the council. It's real important, and it's a community-wide project here.
Do we think this is there's a lot of vacant land over there now.
We think this is a good site because if you look to that map on the upper, like the 11 o'clock position there, there's a chain of parks that'll have connectivity with a sidewalk. And so somebody can, at the Washington Park, that's the trailhead to the bridge, multi-use path, they can go from there and walk to the Ayers.
Okay.
Literally walk, you don't even have to drive. Then you can walk to the swimming pool. And if you want to go to another one, you could walk or drive to the William. So we think it's fitting. We think it's a good location. It's going to have great visibility driving into the city.
As many of the homes, as you know, in Hillcrest are gone.
Yeah.
And they're never coming back.
Exactly. There were over 500. Now there's less than 80.
Yeah. And so we need to be sure we locate this where people can utilize it at its fullest extent.
Right. Well, part of the four-party agreement with the federal government said it had to be in these parks. That's part of the issue. It said in these parks, in TC Ayers and the Washington Coles Park.
Federal government doing great work again.
That was the federal government.
Okay. All right, very good. We'll see what it looks like on the final.
But we're going to have some real good presentation material on the 14th for the council and community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So then we discussed Labonte. And we discussed $2 million request for Cheryl Veterans Memorial Park. That then brings us into District 2, which is a $1 million request for parking lot improvements for Cole Park. As the council is aware, the city has really been working hard on providing more amenities in that signature park area, which includes a splash pad, which will be opening this summer, new playground, and other amenities. And because of that, we are anticipating seeing more foot traffic and more vehicular traffic coming to Cole Park. But currently the parking lots do not have the capacity to accommodate all the traffic. So this request would help us to continue to expand that parking lot to accommodate citizens and visitors to Cole Park. And then that brings us to District 3 with the first project requested, which is the Greenwood Sports Complex. And we'll stand by for your question, Councilman Brewer.
Councilman Barrera.
Okay. I want to point out that there's a couple things. Number one, I'd like for you to make a presentation because this is a sports complex. So this is another one, even though it is District 3, that it's a community-wide project.
Yes, sir.
So I think there needs to be a presentation to the council about what the plan is for it. And my frustration 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago, less than a year and a half ago, more than a year and a half ago, yes. Because we're April. So is that it didn't seem like we had a plan with a timeline. And I could tell you the way the district looks at this, even though it was approved in the last election, it might as well not have been because we haven't seen anything. I mean, we've talked to some stakeholders, which took way too long for us to do that. And I don't want that to happen from this perspective. Do we have an architect already working on this? Okay. Yes, and then have we already started incorporating, because a lot of the improvements that we requested were the things that I brought up in that September meeting.
Yes, they were already they were a part of the project scoping. Janak is the architect. They are designing currently, and we have 30% design right now. And the items, I sent you an email this morning or this afternoon just showing what is the project scope and what we're planning to construct with the 22 and bond 24.
Okay, and I think that's a thing, because once again, it's a sports complex for the community. I know even Visit Corpus Christi with their sports authority has inquired about it. I've heard comparisons as this to the Portland Center, the Portland, facility. And so that way it's something that where people from Corpus aren't going to Portland now and utilizing their facilities. So I'd also like to see a timeline.
Sure.
The same thing of when we're expected to break ground and when we're expected to, so that way the public and particularly the stakeholders know exactly what we're doing. And I don't mean a meeting with, very similar to the meeting that we had with the North Side community people. I think that's the thing, that those individuals need to participate. We can have it there at the Greenwood Senior Center, so that way the community understands and it's not just a few people that get out there. And because this is also a very important project, but I think we just need to do better planning, because as far as the community is concerned, I'm going to say that again. And first off, I'm glad you put this on here. I know I've been complaining for 2 years, okay, and I appreciate, but that's my thing. I mean, the public doesn't know until we break ground. Mm-hmm. And as far as they're concerned, the perspective with which they look at that, they think, and I'm just saying that from the average person, they're wondering, when is it, look at this, there's potholes all over the parking lot, we have problems with lighting, whatever the situation is, a concession stand needs work, and so they look at it from that perspective, and as far as they're concerned, we haven't done anything. So we need to really get that out there. Neiman, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was saying that we understand and agree, sir.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, and I think it's a great idea. Community meetings work. I mean, there are multiple ways to do that, but one of the things Peter could be, or Neiman, could also be putting up a sign at the complex saying, this is coming soon, or this is being worked on, or design is in 30%.
Right.
And all of those people, I mean, good Lord, a ton of people would see that, and it just builds excitement, and they have a sense of, that the city's actually doing something, because nobody knows, right, until, like he said, we break ground and there's a news flash about it.
I mean, we're going to come up on 2 seasons now where we haven't, and we first proposed this. Yeah. And from the time we proposed it, we're 3 seasons. Agreed. And so, you may have some children that have aged out. And I know it's long-range planning, but, it's like I was telling you, Peter, like our discussion that we had this morning, I mean, I know in this particular case, we already have an architect in place, but typically that we issue the RFQ or the RFP, so that way they can, once it's approved, they hit the ground running. I mean, it's very frustrating for me that, I mean, when did we start the architect, when did we engage the architect on this particular project?
Around 4 months back, yeah.
So see, that's the thing, and it was approved, almost a little, 1 year and 7 months ago. Yeah. And so at that time, I would have thought, I would just consider at that time, if it's already proposed, that we've already got one, we've already gone through a procurement process, and November 5th, November 6th, the day after, whatever, at that point, we engage them that we're ready to move. Mm-hmm. Okay?
I agree.
Thank you.
We're going to have a sports complex one day. Just wait and see.
Yeah, good points.
Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad you brought up, let's have a meeting at the Greenwood Center. That prompted me, what is the status of the Greenwood Center, Senior Center? Because it's been it hasn't been open for a while.
Sergio Gonzalez, Assistant Director, Parks. So we just finished the roof, not replacement, some good repair that was needed. So we're planning on opening that here probably in the next couple of months. We ordered some new chairs, some new tables. So we're working towards that. Probably this summer is what we're looking at.
Okay.
But that work was, it took a good while.
How long has it not been open?
Since COVID.
COVID?
Yeah,
wow.
Because the county had it before it was the city health district. The county had it completely. So then we took it over. We had to go in and do a lot of repairs, do a lot of repaint it all inside. And like I said, we're ordering new chairs, new tables, and finally got the roof.
I was not
fixed.
aware.
Yeah.
I was not aware that it belonged to the health
Well, they were using it. It always belonged to us, but they were using it during that time. Now, when we received it back, we went in there and we had to do a lot of upkeep and repairs to it.
Okay.
But we finally got it, where we want it. So doing a little tidying up, ordering some new equipment, and then we'll be ready to open it up.
I knew that it had been out for a while, but I didn't realize that it had been out since COVID.
Yeah.
The other item now that I'm being reminded of is we just had a meeting at the Lindell Senior Center, and I noticed that too is very neglected. I don't know what you all have plans for any future, and the recreation center, which we're fortunate to have, but it does look like it still needs a lot of upkeep, a lot of updating.
Yeah, it's definitely something we could look at. I know we're planning on some landscaping in there as well too, inside the Lindell Senior Center. And the rec center too, we're also looking at some improvements there.
Can you tell me, I know that the senior center is a lot newer than the recreation center. I mean, that's got to be, what, 30, 40, 50 years old?
I'll have to check on that and confirm that.
Okay, so I think that's another project that, we really seriously need to look at. So, thank you.
But yes, Greenwood, we're excited about opening that one up. And I think the people, the Broadmoor, the ones that went over there are usually the members there at Greenwood. So they'll be excited to go back home. Because I get phone calls too. So.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
I was wondering because there was always a lot of activity at one time. Of course, I've only been representing District 2 as my second year, but before I know that there was a whole lot of activity. So I know it's used quite a bit. So thank you for the update.
No problem.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. That then brings us into District 4, which is first project is a request for $5 million to help bring additional amenities to Commodore's Park. Should be noted that the proposed plan is to gain approval for the $5 million in bond 2024 and then utilize the $5 million to leverage with funding from the TERS. That funding will go towards making these improvements that's set before you, which includes lighting, concrete trail walks, workstations, playground, and pickleball courts.
Skate park.
The skate parks have been added to the additional projects for consideration. In District 4 is Perry Place, as is discussed by Councilman Suckley, $2 million for the construction of baseball and softball fields at Perry Place. And then finally for District 4, a $1 million request for the design of a public boat ramp at Dimmitt Pier. For District 5, the requested parks project is $2.75 million to continue building upon the improvements in Billwood Park. And it should be noted that this 2.75 will really be invested in the infrastructure of Billwood Park, which includes the roadways, drainage, and perimeter fencing.
On Bill Witt, can we get, I guess, parks? I noticed there's a lot of trash that blows up against the fencing as you're approaching the entrance, coming from Cimarron on Yorktown, like a lot on the inside. And you can just see it's the wind that takes everything out. But if we can look at that, thank you. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Councilman Hernandez. Barrera.
Just one last thing. If just, let's say, for example, when we move around, if we're able to move some of the Bear Lane items into type B.
Okay.
Something I'd like for you to consider, and I didn't bring it up when we had our meeting last week, is on St. Andrews Park. And I don't think it'd be a whole lot. There's a trail out there and it needs it's in need of maintenance. So I don't know if we have that plan. What is it? I would just, I mean, it's a nice trail. It's a very nice trail.
Yeah.
But there's some areas where you can see that there's a lot of overgrown grass. So I don't know if that's going to be maintenance, or I don't know if we can improve it, or whatever the case is. It just needs to be considered. And I get tugged on it on a regular basis, and expect that when that neighborhood has their annual, they're going to have a meeting here in May. It's an item that's going to be brought up. So if you can have an answer by them, that'd be something to look at.
We can do that.
Yeah. So that is something to consider. I don't think it would be a whole lot. Of course, I don't know any better, but just the trail around St. Andrews Park would be a good component. Thank you. Again, it's used frequently.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thanks, sir. So if we can bring back up the presentation, that brings us to barring any additional questions for streets or parks. We will then go into proposed candidate projects for public safety. Under District 3, we have earmarked $25 million or $12.5 million apiece for the construction of Fire Station 8, which is located at Horn Road, and Fire Station number 10, which is located at Castoris. That then takes us to District 1 and 4, which would be $5 million for the land acquisition and design of Fire Station number 9, which is located at Navigation Boulevard, and Fire Station 11, which is located at Airline. On the police side of the house, we have District 1 and District 5, $14 million for the construction of the Cal Allen Police Substation, which will be located at West Guth Park, and the Far South Police Station, which will be located on the Del Mar South OSO campus. In addition, we have one additional request from CCPD for $1 million for the land acquisition and design of a police substation in Police District 5, which is near La Palmera Mall.
5 or 2?
2.
Police District 5.
Police District 5.
Yeah, not Council District 5, Police District 5.
That's right. Yeah. Great. And that's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Were you going to finish?
Oh, no.
The map? Well, this is the map that shows, where they are. No, I'm just very happy about this. And it's probably long overdue. I think we've had a need. And so thank you for prioritizing this. One of my top priorities has always been public safety. Chief Markle, I would like to hear from you in terms, I think I had given you a call about the substation near La Palmera Mall. But I was interested that, that is the need there. But if you can maybe elaborate just so the council can hear you explain, how you got to these and why these were chosen.
Sure. I appreciate it. Mike Markle, Chief of Police. For clarity, Cal Allen Substation will be called the Northwest Substation. We don't want any riff out there between the Cal Allen and Tolosa. There's a long-standing riff.
Northwest, okay.
So, So the District 5 is certainly, it breaks up our city as it should be, adding a district and shrinking the other districts to accommodate using natural boundaries. So you'll see north of 358, so that District 5 substation will probably end up near La Palmera Mall, but it could be anywhere in that area between the freeway and Ocean Drive. The South District, of course, is south of the freeway, the natural barrier of the Oso. You go east, it's Flower Bluff. Then you have Delta, which is downtown in La Ramada. And then you have the Annaville, which is District 1, or Annaville, which is in District 1 area, to include the industrial area. So it gives us shorter routes for a response. It gives community more access to substations, and it keeps us from having to cross barriers. Also, freeway, that's why we're adding District 5, which extends our response to calls. So much like the fire department has a model that keeps them centralized to certain areas, the 5th District will do the same.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good. Well, this is great news. I'm very thrilled that we're prioritizing, the infrastructure that you need. I think this is a long time coming.
That's greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chief Markle. Okay. Neiman, moving on to Library and Community Center, right? No, proposed candidate project facilities.
That's correct. If we bring the presentation back up. Yes, you're absolutely correct, Madam Mayor. It is a library and community center, but we also have some additional facilities. First, we do have the $2 million request for library and community center design only. Again, this is driven by the fact that there is no existing community center in District 5. And in addition, the only library in District 5 is co-shared with CCISD. Unfortunately, CCISD is, and rightfully so, tightening up the security on all of their campuses to keep children safe. But unfortunately, that's limiting the public access to the public library. So what staff is recommending is do a sale of the facility to CCISD and build our own dedicated library and community center for District 5.
Councilman Barrera.
Here, and I want you to know I support this particularly because we do need one on the south side. All I ask is that we just be cognizant, because even of where, if you look at the map of the senior centers, I think if you would provide it possibly in the northwest corner, so that way it could have some access to District 3, because there's a large portion of that community, particularly off the Weber and Castores corridor, that we just need to ensure that there's connectivity there, so that way we can ensure that the entire, you can kill two birds with one stone there.
Yes, sir.
So just be cognizant. I see how you took out now where, when at first it had basically that location. So and that's the point I want to make also, and I think I spoke to you. Putting it in an area adjacent to a school would make it difficult from a traffic standpoint, particularly first thing in the morning at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. So just
yes, sir.
There's those things to consider. And okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mayor, for that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, sir. In addition, we have what we're calling the Heritage Park Historical Facilities Project. If you recall, in the original proposal, we were requesting $1 million for the renovation of the Little Martin's House. After receiving feedback from our council members and mayor, we updated this project to include the Little Martin's House, the Lichtenstein home, and the Tex-Mex house for $1.25 million.
And just to add to that, Neiman, the Little Martin's House would be the eventual office space for the NAACP. The Lichtenstein House is currently used and would continue to be used by the LULAC as their office and facility. And then the Tex-Mex facility is the red train depot-looking building at the corner of, Mesquite and Port. And the Buccaneers Commission had been leasing that up until recently, where they moved out because they built their own facility. It has substantial deferred maintenance, so there's several nonprofits that are interested in using it. However, it's not habitable at this point, so we suggested that it could be rehabbed with the bond program. So these 3 buildings are all in the footprint of the Heritage Park, as Neiman said.
That's correct. Barring any questions, those are all 40, we believe 42 individual proposed candidate projects. If the proposal was approved as presented, this would be the rough proportionality matrix where we were able to ensure that all the council districts benefited from the bond revenues equitably. But I would like to note that, again, in discussing the $175 million request from city staff, it was very important for us to note that even at $175 million, there still have been more requests that we've received either from stakeholders or from council members or community groups wide, to the point where we added it up, and even with a $175 million request for the bond, we're still looking at approximately $75 million in additional need that was identified from engaging with different groups across the city. So again, key dates for the bond 2024. Today, we're hoping to walk away with an approval from City Council for our proposed list to start engaging and publishing to our community groups and stakeholders. We anticipate that that would begin nearly immediately throughout the month of May and throughout the month of June. And again, as the city manager said it before, we'd bring the feedback from those groups back to City Council for consideration. Here's a list of current stakeholders' meeting schedule. Notice that this is only the schedule for April and a portion of May, so it's not the all-encompassing list. We do anticipate that there are going to be additional stakeholder groups that are added to the calendar as we are trying to market, I'm sorry, not market, but inform the public and get the word out about Bond 24 to the largest portion of the community as possible. So again, here's our recommendation. Approve the list of candidate projects for Bond 2024 to be presented to the community from May 24 through June 24.
Okay.
And with that being said, Madam Mayor, that concludes my presentation, and we'll stand by for additional questions. Oh, and I do want to state, because I know that council does want to get a thorough review of the proposed project, but if you look under tab 3 in either in your folder or in the Legistar, there is a summary of all the proposed projects on a spreadsheet, and that'd probably be more helpful and help facilitating the conversation with the council members and staff. So we'll stand by for questions or concerns.
Okay. Thank you, Neiman. So now it goes back to, so it goes out to the community. And so you get, you know, we're going to get input. So how do you work, you know, what's here is from the council, which obviously would be or should be from, you know, what they hear and think.
Right.
But then this, and this, I'm just saying this for clarity, so this very well can change moving forward.
Right.
Not likely is going to.
Right. Yeah, we expect it to, Mayor.
Okay.
Right. There will be some modification from the community input. So we're going to have 5 community meetings. You know, at some of these, we could expect over 50, maybe close to 100. So
right.
There could be some real good participation from the community. And then the job would be to somehow reconcile this initial list with a final list.
So
and people ask us, how do you do that? So it's
right.
If one person out of 100 says, let's do this project, okay, but if 70 people across the meeting say it, then that's a consensus. There's more support behind that. So there has to be good, has to be some momentum or numerous residents saying the same thing.
Right.
Potentially across the 5 meetings.
And or if they're to get emails or I'm
right, yeah, and they can come to council and our citizens to be heard.
So you'll be taking, somebody will be taking notes at every meeting.
Absolutely.
And you'll come back and holistically look at it.
And it's the 5 community meetings plus the probably 36 stakeholder meetings. That list Neiman showed is just the beginning, and he's actually already begun some of them. Right. And so then we have to reconcile all the stakeholder input, the community input, the council input, and additional input we'll get from the meetings here.
Okay.
What was that? That was just passed out. That has nothing to do with the bond program. Not sure why that was passed out.
No.
Yeah, that's not on what we're talking about right now. So Mayor, that's it. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So, but our meetings do begin, as Neiman showed in that last schedule, next week, Monday, and then we have one on Monday is the District 1 bond, and we're going to also do the Type A sales tax conversation. So Monday's District 1, Wednesday is District 2, and then we have Thursday next week is City Council District 5's community meeting. And to point out, the districts, this is a community-wide, you don't have to live in the district. You can go to all 5.
Right.
You could live in District 2 and go to District 5, and vice versa, you know. So they're labeled district because that's the geographic location.
And people can find this information on our website?
This should be on our website by now.
That's correct. That's correct. They can, and we're going to also ensure that, just like with Bond 2022, they're going to be even more robust, informative campaign. So we have it on the website, but there's going to be additional resources to ensure that we get the word out.
We should also ask the news channels to put this out there.
Yeah, I think we did one media release already, but we'll do another one leading up to next week.
Yes, ma'am.
And then there's 2 more districts the week after. Districts 3 and 4 would be the week after next week.
Okay.
They're on your calendars, yes, sir, Councilman Pesley, definitely.
Okay. Councilwoman Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at our presentation, and I'm looking at page 103, the $75 million additional proposed candidate. So I just did, a quick adding up. For District 1, there's $5 million. For District 2, $2 million. That wasn't even in this the presentation. District 3, $17.5 million. District 4, $4.5 million. District 5, $10 million. So again, $2 million that I was asking for District 2 for sidewalks was neglected on this presentation. And I'm wondering, is that done purposely, or why was that left out?
Basically, ma'am, it wasn't purposely left out. We did do engagements, and we really didn't hear the support, as city manager has stated, that when we hear, a constant concern or request for it, then it's added. We didn't hear that. So.
Well, I'm saying it. Is that something that I need to publicly ask my city council members here if they support sidewalks for District 2?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so help me out here then. I'm asking, I guess I make a motion. I don't know if it's a workshop, okay. Well, okay, so.
You asked, are there others in support?
Okay, good, thank you. Are there others in support of sidewalks for District 2?
Well, we're not voting, guys.
Well,
So-
okay, but
Ms. Campos, what needs to be done is you need to just state
yes,
what your concerns are and what your thoughts are and what you're proposing for everyone to consider. Not today, because we don't vote here, but I think you just need to make those statements.
Has it not been clear? Because this is what I was asking Peter when the initial presentation was done to Jim and I. I mean, you automatically just bypassed it. And it wasn't until I asked you, Peter, why didn't you even present the sidewalk project? And you said because no one was interested. So I decided to do my own calling. And I didn't call every one of y'all, but I at least made my attempt to either text, call, what have you. And as far as I know, I mean, unless it's different, all of them seem to be in support. So that's why I was wondering, I mean, why was it left out? I feel like I am being misled, and I feel like our city councilmen are being misled, unless I'm, thinking differently. I'd like to hear from our councilman and our mayor as to why according to you, there was no interest, but according to the phone calls that I've made,
Yeah, excuse me.
except for two.
I don't think I said there was no interest. I said the consensus of the council based on the last council meeting that we had indicated to us there wasn't consensus agreement amongst the council members. Neiman presented the project in public in our council meeting. I don't have the date, but in April. And there seemed to be more opposition to the project than support based on the feedback.
I don't recall. I really don't recall. And
Right.
I think it's disingenuous of you to just eliminate this project automatically. And like I said, this is for District 2, citywide, everyone. I don't know if I need to go over these numbers again, but $5 million for District 1, $17 million for District 3, $4 million for District 4, $10 million for District 5, and I'm asking for $2 million for District 2, and it's being ignored?
Yeah, so one, it's not being ignored, it's on the list, and we're talking about it now. And we talked
Only
about-
because I'm bringing it up.
And we talked about it, no, Neiman brought it up earlier too, but we talked about it also in the council meeting in April. And so based on that council meeting, there didn't seem to be strong enough consensus. That's why we talked to you about it in our one-on-one meeting.
Yes.
You and I have talked about it several times
Yes.
since that time. So it's still on the material, we're still talking about it. We need to get consensus amongst the 9 members of council that this is a project they want to include, you all want to include. One thing we heard and we're in agreement with is that we should develop some type of criteria, a program for how we go about doing this.
Right.
So there's not some perception that there's some favoritism happening in terms of where the sidewalks are picked. So in our streets, we have a PCI score, and it's easier to say, okay, something in a 16 PCI score versus an 80, you're going to do the 16 first. So similar here, we don't really have a good scoring system or process for selecting sidewalks. So that's some of the material we heard from the council, both in the council meeting in April and then in some of the one-on-one meetings.
Well, I believe if you had any conversations with Neiman, and you, of course, with Ernie, you would know that there was a suggestion, just like you just said right now, that, you know, there should be some kind of criteria. So they'd have to be not a survey. What is it called?
Assessment.
An assessment of the overall, you know, sidewalk assessment. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ernie said it was like 2,000 miles of sidewalks. So I can understand. So it would be citywide, right? I think it's like 2,000 miles, I think is what he mentioned. But that also could be part of the request, if not 2 million, maybe 2.5 million, since I think he estimated it would be about 500,000 for just the survey, for a citywide survey of the assessment of the sidewalks.
Right.
So just again, I feel just slighted, and not just me, but for the residents of District 2.
Okay. Well, your council peers and colleagues need to weigh in on it, Councilwoman. We're working for the consensus of the council.
Okay, we've got some comments here. So let's see, Councilman Suckley?
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Neiman and staff, for the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Is this booklet identical to the one that was delivered yesterday?
That's correct, yes, sir.
It is identical?
Yes, sir.
All right. And lastly, regarding the upcoming meetings, Peter, I think it's, you guys probably realize this, I think it's important with how the meeting's going to be presented. I assume we're going to have 2 different sets of folks, one doing bond stuff and one doing sales tax stuff.
Yes, sir.
This could be a lot of information for the community, so I think it's important that things remain sort of compartmentalized between the two.
They will be, Councilman. Okay. There'll be different presenters, and there'll be a clear beginning and end of each of those sessions. Yes, sir.
Councilman Barrera.
Thank you, Mayor. Peter, first off, I want to make it clear that I understand I understand the situation and the need for sidewalk repair, and I said very clearly that I didn't think it needed to be considered into a bond program. In fact, I recommended that we look at it. I think Richard Martinez had indicated that we have some type of program developed for individuals that were either disabled or were seniors or didn't have access, to be able for them to have access. Similar thing with speed bumps. I just felt that if we didn't have a system in place, so I agree with you. I just want to make it very clear that if a phone call was made to me, and I'd be very transparent that I said specifically that I didn't think it belonged in a bond program, but I do feel that there's a demand. So, and Councilmember Campos, I would please request that, or try to discourage you from making comments to the city manager that you spoke to every council member or the majority of us and we were all in support. For one, you just said that. But the other thing is that the implication is that there was other particular reasons of where you were left out, and I don't think that's right that you should talk to the city manager that way, because I'm just telling you that we have a professional that we have to run our organization, and to make an implication as to where you were slighted, I think is wrong. And that's, I just wanted to say that in defense of the city manager, because there's times I'm very critical of him, but not here from there's been a couple times here from the dais. I know one, I get talked about it, told all the time about it, but I just think that I would urge caution that to make a statement like that is very bold. And I don't think it's right. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Hunter.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Campos, we did talk. I do think the sidewalks need to be repaired, and it should be. There's a lot of different reasons. Mrs. Campos has her reasons. My reasons are a little bit more of the conservative viewpoint, which is when these sidewalks were put into place, the residents were told that sidewalk to sidewalk was city property. And then 30 years ago, the city said no in lots of different parts of the city. I know most of you weren't here. Lots of different parts of the city said no, residents are paying for it. No, it's your responsibility. So, and now, I mean, I have a neighborhood where we have a bunch of trees in between the sidewalk, in between the sidewalk and the road. We can't even touch those trees. Y'all have to, because they're city property. I guess we just need to make some sort of distinction and come up with something. I'm not sure if a bond program's the correct way to do it either, but I do think we need to focus on it. Yeah. Because the citizens shouldn't be paying for it, and if they are, then I don't know what the solution would be, but we need to come up with something.
Thank you, Councilman. And to add to that, I would say that there is an ordinance in place. No one made a decision, woke up and made a decision. There's an ordinance in place. Who put it in place? Yeah, I don't know. We can look back and figure that out, but it doesn't matter today. There's an ordinance in place that says the sidewalk in front of someone's property is their responsibility. So this body has the authority to change that ordinance if they want to. This body has the authority to go fund $10 million in sidewalks if they want to. In my conversation with Ms. Campos, I said to her that I believe that we need a program. I believe that we need to know not just one district's issues with sidewalks, but the entire city's, because we need to leave socioeconomic factors out of sidewalks and address them all. And we believe in, equal proportionality across the board. And so if sidewalks is a topic that this council would like to prioritize at any level, that's fine. But the first step is to ask staff to go start the due diligence. The second step is to know what is the cost of beginning and starting that due diligence. There is a cost involved in that, and my guess would be multiple hundred thousands of dollars, and that's fine. But we need to know that. So we need to get educated on what is our sidewalk. What is our sidewalk problem? How bad is that? So I think, Councilwoman, sidewalks have been talked about for years. I've been on council 8 years now. So I can tell you they've been talked about for 8 years, not every single year, because other things have been prioritized. But I think when you had your conversations, I don't think there was a council member that said, I don't care about sidewalks. I think everybody does to a degree. I think it's about, again, having the conversation on how do we start addressing it, because it is a huge issue, and it's it's kind of like a street issue, or many legacy issues that have, come and gone. Some still are, and Peter's still trying to, untangle them. But when they involve the tax dollar, we have to be the guardian of that, and that means we must have. We must do our due diligence. And in my opinion, we create a program. But again, we're policymakers. Peter is the one that is charged with go figure it out and then bring it back. So that's where I stand with sidewalks. I absolutely believe we need to, do something about them, but what is it? And that's where we direct staff. They go look into that. They bring it back. They give us options. And then a council decides on how much of a priority that will be. Councilman Pusley. Councilman Pusley.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, quick question, Neiman. When does the first meeting on the bond for the neighborhoods, when does that take place?
Yes, sir.
Is it in the book? I'm trying.
It is,
Sorry.
First stakeholder meeting, sir, it's on page 105.
105. All right, let me.
It's going to be Monday, May 6th.
Roger, in District 1.
District 1, Monday, May 6th. It's coming Monday.
Okay.
That's next week, Monday.
105, May 6th.
There's a location in there, Nina?
We don't have the locations in the book, but they are on everyone's calendars, and we do have the information on the city's website, and we'd gladly send the locations and everything back out again.
Oh, okay. Well, I just want to remind everybody that we're in the middle of Buccaneer Days, and we all have schedules associated with that.
Yes, sir.
And so it's probably not the best week to have called neighborhood meetings because a lot of those people are going to be involved in Buccaneer Days. And so my 6-year-old grandson is doing mutton busting on May the 10th, and that's where I'll be. So there are many other families that are going to be enjoying that as well with their respective nights going to the rodeos and et cetera, et cetera. So I would be mindful of what your schedule looks like compared to that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Councilman. We might have to revisit this.
And so including all of us being, or whoever is going to be at the parade. Okay, and so I guess, and I'm, Councilwoman Campos, I'm saying this with all sincerity, I promise you. So I'm a little confused about the sidewalk deal and whether or not that discussion belongs in the bond package or whether that belongs as part of the budget process. Peter,
it could be, it is somewhat of an operating, the bond programs, when you look at the size of some of these projects, are in the tens of millions.
Right.
So in the operating budget, it's a smaller amount. We can handle it as a pay-as-you-go program.
Right.
So there is merit from Councilman Barrera's standpoint to place it in the operating budget because it's more in line with a maintenance project. Some cities, though, have put them in bond programs, but they're so it's really a policy choice. Either way, it could be supported, but it does suggest more of a maintenance program because of the size of the budget.
Okay. But if the councilwoman wanted to say with respect to the bond package, and there's some, there's some projects listed here for District 2, whether she would rather see some of that money go towards sidewalk versus where it's now programmed by your staff.
Right.
Is that a possibility?
That's a possibility, but some of these projects are pretty fixed in their budget, so it's probably
hard to move.
Yeah, like this, the cost for each of these is fixed by the design and the construction cost, so you would basically be cutting back some of the scope of work.
Okay.
You could put another phase in some of these, like a Alameda construction, Texan to Doddridge. You could say Texan to some other street short of Doddridge, as an example.
Okay, so like South Staples Access Road.
Yeah.
$6 million. Is that $6 million for construction or engineering?
That's both engineering and construction, but that's a good example. So you could do a piece of that. You could do $4 million of it.
Yeah.
And then the rest you do some other time. That's an option.
Okay. Okay. So there's some options there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
Councilwoman. Hold on a second. Are you on? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilman Pusley, on that suggestion, and actually Councilman Barrera on the other one as well. Yes, I did make those calls, and I did speak to most, I think, except for Councilman Suckley. But anyway, I guess the point being that even after the discussions that I had, which was a really good one, there are actually grants out there for sidewalks. Did y'all know that? There's grants.
Yeah, we're using some right now.
Yeah. So anyway, one of them that was was sent to me after asking some other people. It was AARP. So it could be, and I think to the mayor's point is, because one of the discussions was, let's try to, tackle the seniors first and that strategy. And I thought, well, that sounds ideal, but how would you do that? So there are various ways to address sidewalks, but I guess, I'm sorry if I got a little, heated, personal, passionate, whatever you want to call it. But it's because District 2 is, again, some of the oldest neighborhoods. And when you get these calls on a regular basis telling me they can't, push their toddlers on their strollers. I've got elderly, in their wheelchairs. I mean, they know. All the other members, I'm sure, receive these type of calls. But I guess being in District 2, it hits me, my heart, because I think about, all the years that people have paid their taxes and they're just asking for a little bit of relief. So, I'm the only one that can say that right now because, I'm their elected representative. So, yeah, I do get emotional. And, but I'm just,
Yes, ma'am, we understand, ma'am.
Just want to just say thank you for listening. And it's been a long day, even though it only started at 2. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Hunter.
Councilmember Campos, I did not know that you had talked to the other council members. I was one of the council members that she spoke to, but that is a walk-in quorum. And Rebecca or Miles needs to get with Councilmember Campos and explain to her what that situation is, because I do not think me or any of the other council members, who I don't know who she spoke to, but that can get us into big trouble. You can only talk to 3 people or 3 people, bringing up to 4. When we bring back the ordinance, and it's all right, it's happened before, but we can't have that happen, especially when we bring the ordinance back. It is impossible to expect for the sidewalks. It is impossible to expect every homeowner, property owner, whatever owner to abide by all the ADA compliance situations. So I think it needs to be brought back as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Hernandez.
One of the concerns that I had coming is when this was published and even was on some of the news stations was the size of the package. Some people have made some concerns that it is very large, and they're concerned that it's going to impact their taxes in some aspects. So we may get some people addressing that with regards to the size of it. I know Councilman Hunter had mentioned it on some of the discussions we had on here. There may be a possibility, if it does get enough traction through the community meetings, we may have to start cut back a little bit on this package. So I don't know what that looks like, what it would come down to, maybe similar to 2022, but we can look at it. I'll wait till see what we hear in the community meetings. Thank you.
Councilman Suckley.
Thanks, Mayor. Although I obviously wasn't contacted regarding my thoughts from Council Member Campos, I did share my thoughts about it, and I'll share them here in open session. I think yeah, we have a lot of sidewalk needs. We have a lot of infrastructure needs, period. But with respect to trying to maximize dollars, my opinion is that by doing just a certain section of sidewalk, you're benefiting primarily the people that are pedestrians in that particular area. So I'm not sure that the impact is high as it is right now for spending dollars on streets and other things that we so desperately need. And with respect to my district, we're lucky to have sidewalks. So I can't really get emotional or be upset about fixing sidewalks because we don't have sidewalks in a good portion of Flower Bluff or Potter Allen. So, thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman, do you have a short comment here? We're going on third time.
One last comment. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure.
As far as walking quorum, or, I mean, I guess I'll find out if I did. The issue, I guess I would have had is this is a workshop. That's one. So the other is I wouldn't even have had to have called anyone had it just been left as it was to begin with. So that's all I'm going to have to say. Thank you. If the sidewalks project would have just been left and introduced just like the other projects, then that would have been the end of it.
Councilman Pusley.
Yeah, I do tend to agree with the mayor. Peter, if we're going to do sidewalks, we need to talk about a program, you know, and I'm right there with Councilman Suckley, and I know Councilman Roy will probably agree. There are many places in the northwest part of Corpus Christi that never have had sidewalks. Even though when the city annexed us, they promised us all this, you know, wonderful infrastructure that we pay taxes on for and have never received. So if we're going to do sidewalks, it's going to be a big program, and we're going to have to take it, you know, in bites. But the city's going to have to decide. That won't happen on my watch. So the city's going to have to decide how they're going to handle that. But I do know I've shared some frustration over seeing these federal grant programs where they fix the ADA access at a corner of one side of the sidewalk and a corner at the other side, but the sidewalk in between is non-compatible with any wheelchair or handicap device that you could ever try to roll down a sidewalk. So it's frustrating to see that sometimes. But anyway, that's my comment on that. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, then I think that's going to wrap up our bond program. You've got a lot of good input, Peter, and thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
This was a very good presentation. We appreciate all the work that's gone into this. And I really do look forward to you know, hearing what our constituents have to say. And I would encourage all of our council members to really do all that you can to let your districts know, you know, when your meeting is. And again, it doesn't have to be that they attend that particular meeting, but of course that's most convenient for them. We really, really need to hear their voices. So use your social media, you know, share what the city's putting out. There's just so many ways. And of course, just, you know, word of mouth. So,
yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, well, maybe they can make it. Do y'all have are y'all going to have a graphic?
We probably have a graphic that we'll send to the council tomorrow.
With all the dates?
That can be, that'll have the 2 weeks worth of meetings, and we'll send
That'd
that
be
out.
Great.
You guys can use that in social
Just a graphic
media
for social.
posts.
That'd be really good. Yeah. Wonderful. Neiman, thank you. And thank you to the team for everyone who's here. We appreciate it.
Thank you all for
Chief
your time.
Markle, Chief Wade. God bless y'all.
Thank you. Thanks, council. Good meeting. Yes.
Okay. With that said, this meeting's adjourned.